Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 20th, 2024 Grants Pass City Council meeting. We start our meetings with a moment of silence, so please join me for that. Please rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Councillor Frazier is remote right now, and I think he's the only one that's remote. Okay, just one online, so, and 5 here in the room. We are going to get started tonight with a series of public hearings, and so I have a statement to read. At this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an application to amend the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 670 and 680 Rogue River Highway from general commercial to business park. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition to the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding the application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council, and the public. The item before you is a request for a comprehensive plan and zone map amendment. The applicant for the record is McKenna Homes, LLC. Just a summary of the request. Again, the request before you tonight is a comprehensive plan and zone map amendment from changing both the comp plan and zone map from general commercial to business park. This is for a property located at 670 and 680 Rogue River Highway, and specifically tax lots 36-05-20 CB, tax lots 7900, 8000, and 8001. These make up 3 parcels combined for approximately a little over a half acre, and all 3 tax lots are currently undeveloped. The relationship to council goals, this supports the council goals to facilitate sustainable and manageable growth and economic opportunities by allowing an existing business to expand their current operations. Some context, again, the site address is 670, 680 Rogue River Highway. We're at the north or the southeast portion of the city. Again, that sits on over a little bit over half acres, making up of 3 parcels. The current zoning now and the current comp plan now are general commercial. The request tonight is simply to change that comp plan and rezone to business park. The existing surrounding land uses now to the north are existing residential properties. To the east, or right next door, is the supportive housing development from On Track. South, across the highway, the Redwood Highway, is a restaurant. And west is an existing self-storage, Minimax self-storage facility, which is also the applicant tonight. And the frontage along Rogue River Highway is obviously jurisdiction of ODOT. By way of background, last December, a comprehensive plan and zone map application was submitted to staff and deemed complete in December. A public hearing before the Urban Planning Commission was scheduled in February. And in fact, on February 28th, UAPC recommended approval to you tonight of the comp plan and zone map amendment to City Council. Although the criteria of the comp plan and zone map amendment does not consider specific future development plans, the applicant does propose to expand on the existing business that of self-storage and construct a 3-story, a little over 43,000 square foot self-storage building. And this would be, again, an expansion of his existing business to the west. Self-storage are allowed as a primary use in business park and a secondary use in general commercial. And if approved tonight, a site plan review application is still due to staff and must be submitted for review and approval to expand the existing self-storage facility. Since we're amending the comprehensive plan in terms of how it relates to the zoning or the development code, the comprehensive plan sits above the zoning map or zoning code. And so basically we are changing tonight, or the request before you is to change the comp plan and zone from general commercial to business park, both for the comprehensive plan and for the zone map amendment. In terms of consistency with the zoning districts, the definitions of general commercial, I won't read them, and also business park are behind me, and also included in the staff report. And as far as existing zones, the current zone again is general commercial, and the proposed zone is business park. To the north are R2 properties, and to the east are general commercial and south general commercial. And to the west, adjacent is an existing business park. So this request before you would simply change the zoning and comp plan from GC to BP or business park. The criteria for approval, both in the comprehensive plan, sits in our plan policy 13.5 and 4, and in our development code, the zone map amendment article 4.033. The proposed project or proposed application is considered a minor amendment to the comprehensive plan, and is processed tonight as a quasi-judicial review pursuant to our comp plan. And on February 28th, the UAPC found that the proposal is consistent with the policy elements of the comprehensive plan and zone map amendment, and voted again unanimously to approve and recommended to City Council the comp plan and zone map amendment. And the full staff response and report can be found on page 9 of your packets. The call to action tonight, the 120-day does expire on April 20th, next month. There are no costs or cost implications, and the recommendation again tonight from the UAPC is to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment and zone map amendment for map number 36-05-20 CB tax lots 7900, 8000, and 8001, changing the zone comp plan from general commercial to business park. There are alternatives are behind me, and the potential motion is also behind me. That concludes staff report, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Council, do you have any questions? Valerie?
Hi, yes, Mark, thank you. I have a question, and this goes back to the difference in what's allowed in general commercial and business park. And under the land use on page 79, it talks about secondary use of self-storage is not allowed in business park, but it is allowed as a primary use in business park. What's the difference between a secondary and a primary use?
A good question. And I'll maybe ask for Brad for help. The primary use in this case, if it's business park, would be self-storage. If it's a secondary use, if it's the current zoning as general commercial, it wouldn't be allowed because it's only a related secondary use to the primary use. As it stands now, if the proposal is for only self-storage, and that wouldn't necessarily be allowed since it's only allowed as a secondary use. So hence the change from business park would be more consistent with the allowed uses.
And it was my understanding, I also read in here that ODOT actually felt that the traffic pattern would be better.
Correct.
For it to be something like self-storage because it's kind of on that funny curve as you come in. So that's another reason that it makes sense. Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions? All right. Is the applicant wanting to? Okay.
Good evening, council, staff, and mayor. Justin Gerlitz Engineering Consultants, here tonight on behalf of the applicant for the Mini-MAC Comprehensive Plan and Zone Map Amendment. Mark did a really good job of covering a lot of the things, so I'll be brief here on some of the items. So the project, as noted, is located on Rogue River Highway, just off of Highway 199. It is located adjacent to the original phase of this project, which was done a while back. This is what the frontage of the project looks like from Google Earth. This is looking to the east along Rogue River Highway, and this is that, we'll call it the on-ramp or off-ramp to 199 that Councilor Lovelace had mentioned. This is the frontage looking the other way to the west, and if we go to, this is the empty lot we're talking about right here. And for reference, this is the on-track project that we just brought to you for the special use permit, which is right next door. So everything essentially will mesh together. This is looking down on the property. As you can see, this property has always been challenging to develop as a general commercial site because it's got a significant grade change from the highway. The highway's way up here, and when you look down here from the bottom, you can see how far up it goes. So the proposed project that would come after this zone map amendment would kind of accommodate that grade in the structure itself. As mentioned, the original project is zone BP, and as you can see on the screen, it's kind of isolated. The reason for that is when this project was originally purchased as general commercial, mini storages were actually allowed in general commercial, and shortly thereafter, the code changed, which forced it into an industrial classification as a primary use. So thus, the original project was rezoned from general commercial to business park, and that's what we're asking tonight for the same reason, is to accommodate this extra half an acre into the project. The same with the comprehensive plan. As mentioned, surrounding uses are primarily commercial in nature. We do have 2 residential properties to the north and northeast. The applicant has worked with those property owners for the next phase, which is a site plan application, to get a setback variance. They call it the type D2 landscape buffer, if you're familiar with that. So instead of a 20-foot setback, they can go as close to 5 feet from the property line, and they give the neighbors an easement and a ability to landscape the area and almost basically utilize it as part of their yard. They're both in the know and in agreement with the base project that we're trying to propose here. These are the lots on the tax map. As you can see, it's 3 separate lots. And then this is the proposed site plan that's going to come after this. Primarily, it will be a small parking lot up front with a large building in the rear. This building, the upper stories will access from the parking lot, but the lower 2 stories will actually access from the existing facility down here, elevators inside. So working with ODOT on this pretty carefully, what are the things with his existing driveways? It's very steep, kind of ramps down. So we're kind of pulling the office that's quite a ways off the street back to the front of the facility up front. This is just a rendering of the building itself, this being the street view, and then this showing how it's going to go down the hill. And overall, I think with the surrounding uses and the neighbors in agreement and the on-track project next door, this is a logical expansion of the previously proposed rezone for this project. Obviously adds more industry to our community, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? No questions. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this application? And is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of the application? All right. We'll close the public hearing and turn it back to council for discussion. Valerie.
I don't see any problem with it. I think it does fit the environment, and with the recommendation of ODOT, I'm going to move to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment and zone map amendment for map number 36-05-20 CB, tax lots 7900, 8000, 8001, 100 from general commercial to business park, and have it read title only, first reading.
Seconded by Rick. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to adopt the amendment. How do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 670 and 680 Rogue River Highway from general commercial to business park.
Thank you. Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the comprehensive plan amendment and zone map amendment for map number 36520 CB, tax lot 7900, 8000, 8001, from general commercial to business park, and have it read by title only. Second reading.
Is there a second? Seconded by Dwayne. Discussion on the motion? All right, Rick, you made the motion to adopt the ordinance. How do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 670 and 680 Rogue River Highway from general commercial to business park.
Thank you. At this time, I will now open our second public hearing, which is to consider an application filed by the Grants Pass School District. This application is to vacate the common property line between lots 1500 and 2000 of map number 36-05-17-BD. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition of the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding this application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council and public. The item before you tonight is a property line vacation between two tax lots. The applicant, again, as stated, is the Grants Pass School District 7. The summary request is to allow or to approve a vacation between two properties, tax lots 15 and 2000 of map 36-05-17BD, and currently zoned R3. The applicant would like to consolidate these properties and at some point develop them in the future. Then the relationship to council goals, this facilitates sustainable, manageable growth. Specifically, the property line vacation is within, you can see the blue circle and the red cross. The request before you tonight is to remove that line, and then one parcel will be created between tax lots 1500 and 2000. These are both properties zoned R3 and both owned by the school district. As far as the criteria, the result, as long as the property line vacation, the resultant property configuration does not create a substandard condition relative to the requirements of this code, of the Development Code, and the proposal is not contrary to public health, safety, welfare, convenience, or any other purpose in Article 17, and both are true here. Staff has received no public comments pursuant to this application. And in terms of call to action, the cost simplification, there are none. The call to action date is June 12th of this year. The motion or the recommendation is to approve the property line vacation as proposed. And if approved, the property line vacation will be final or effective 30 days after council approval. That concludes staff's report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Council, do you have any questions? No questions. Is there someone here to represent the school district? No? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the application?
Where is it located?
You can,
Property.
if you'd like to speak, please step up to the mic.
I just wonder where it's located, the address, what part of town? I just see a lot of
Adjacent to
numbers.
the high school, oh, sorry.
Oh, to the high school?
It is adjacent to the high
Okay,
school.
never mind.
Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back to council for discussion. Valerie?
I will just answer that, yes, it is the high school. It's located right by the high school, right behind the high school. So it's their property, and I think we need to give them the right to get rid of that property line. So I'm going to move to approve the ordinance vacating the property lines between tax lots 1500 and 2000 of map number 360517BD, first reading.
Seconded by Rick. Discussion on the motion? All right, Valerie, you made the move to approve. How do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property line between tax lots 1500 and 2000 of map number 360517BD.
Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to move to adopt the ordinance vacating common property line between tax lots 1500 and 2000, map number 360517BD, and have it read by title only, second reading.
Seconded by Joel. Thank you. Discussion on the motion? All right, Rick, you made the motion. How do you vote?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property line between tax lots 1500 and 2000 of map number 360517BD.
Thank you. For those of you in the audience, when we pass an ordinance, we have a first and second reading, and we have a council rule that when it's unanimous on the first vote, we can vote immediately following on the second vote. So we are doing it twice in a row. And we also have 5 quasi-judicial hearings tonight. So you're going to hear me read this 3 more times. But at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an application to vacate the common property line between tax lots 500 and 600 of map number 360613DD. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition of the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding the application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, members of the public. This application is actually very closely related to not your next hearing item, but the following one. So this is property that is on Lincoln and Bridge. This application is specifically related to a vacation of a property line. The annexation application follows 2 behind this. They are 2 separate actions, so that's why you have these 2 things before you that are kind of separated. But so this specific hearing is like your prior to, just related to vacating a property line. It has nothing to do with the proposed RV park, which is associated with this, or the annexation, which is associated with this. So this application is here at the intersection of Lincoln and Bridge. These are the two yellow parcels here on the map. And the applicant is proposing to consolidate those properties to develop an RV park. It relates to your council goals to facilitate sustainable and manageable growth. The property line vacation was actually a condition of approval. The Planning Commission held a public hearing last week and reviewed the site plan project. And that project is conditioned on whether they can get this property line removed. You'll see in a minute the proposal that they have really requires that it be treated as a single developable parcel rather than two separate ones because of the way that the structures are proposed to be situated. The Planning Commission did vote, as I mentioned, on March 13th, 7-0 vote in favor. We did receive 2 emails after that that are in opposition. There was also several members of the public that spoke at the Planning Commission meeting last week, also in opposition. So here is the tax parcel map from the assessor's office. Again, kind of this L shape here with Lincoln Road on the left and Bridge Street here on the south. The proposed property line vacation is here kind of on the northern quarter of the site. Just so you can get a better sense for the purpose for the request tonight, what's on the screen here behind me is the proposed RV park. And again, we have Lincoln Road on the west and Bridge Street on the south, and the existing property line is between this leg of the L, if you will, and the lower portion. And in order to do some of the infrastructure and the location of some of the other features in RVs, they needed to request that the existing property line be removed. So here's Southwest Bridge Street on the top. The view from the south side is they're sitting on the top. I suppose we should have flipped these and done the south on the bottom, but Southwest Lincoln is here on the bottom, and again, that's looking with the subject property being here on the left side of Lincoln. So, like your other applications tonight, there's a required criterion that you have to meet in order to do a property line vacation. It can't create a substandard condition, and it can't be contrary. The removal of the line can't be contrary to public health, safety, and welfare. Those were reviewed by staff and found that they were met. For this application, we did not receive any public comments, and the call to action and potential motion is there on the screen.
Thank you, Brad. Council, any questions? Dwayne?
You said there wasn't any comments, but before that, you said there was some people that had complaints or something. Can you explain what that was about?
Sure. So we have 3 applications that are associated with this project. The first application is approval to actually construct an 87-space RV project. The second application is to remove the property line, and the third application is to annex. So there's 3 separate discrete applications under Oregon statute. They're kind of treated a little differently, and so some applications, you know, we invite comment on any of those. Well, I correct. The annexation is under state law not required to have that hearing. So we can talk about that when we have the annexation next on your agenda. But for this one, for the property line vacation, we did not receive any public comment. There was public comment at the Planning Commission for the RV park.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Rob, then Valerie?
So essentially, council is to look at these 3 things independent of each other, right? Property line vacation has nothing to do with approving an RV park necessarily, right? It's a separate deal.
It is a separate deal, you are correct. It falls under a different section of our development code. We try to piece the puzzle together, and if you will, so that you can understand the full context. But they are separate applications in different sections of the code, yeah.
Valerie?
that was kind of my question, is that this what we're approving is the property line vacation. Does the RV park come before the council, or is that just approved through the planning commission?
It only goes to the planning commission unless it is appealed.
Okay.
Then it would come to you.
Okay, thank you. And when they talk about public health, safety, and welfare, I'm just thinking safety. When they do, this just has nothing to do with the property tax, so I guess I'll just forget that one until later.
All right, just so everyone knows, the item 2A on the agenda has to do with the annexation, and this particular item has to do with the property line vacation, but I am going to move the annexation and do it next. But as we open this for public comment, at this time we'll be taking public comment regarding just the property line vacation. Is there someone here representing the developer, the property owner?
I believe we do, yes. Did you have a presentation?
I don't. Yours is always good enough.
All right.
Thank you.
Let me pull this up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Lanny Hickey, 112 North 5th Street, Klamath Falls, Oregon. And I'm with Rheinquist Group, the agent for the applicant and the owner. And thank you, Brad, for the presentation. I didn't bring a presentation for a property line vacation. It's pretty straightforward. It would have been repetitive. And so it is for future development, and it is just for the vacation of the line between the two lots so that they can construct, like Brad said, infrastructure for whatever the future development is.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Valerie?
I'm just confirming they're both owned by the same person, correct?
They are, yes.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone from the audience who was wanting to speak on behalf of this application? And is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak in opposition of this application? Okay, please come up to the podium and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Is this on? Okay, my name's Brendan Gallagher. I live at 1864 Southwest Topaz Lane, and I am totally opposed to the vacation of the property line. I'm also opposed to the entire development. I think it's an oversaturation of the area. There's a lot of families that live in my neighborhood, and there's going to be a lot more traffic once this development, if it does pass. And like I said, I'm totally opposed to it. I'm sure a lot of other people are going to give other reasons, and I'll probably agree with those too. Thank you.
I think there was somebody else who wanted to speak. Please step up and state your name and let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Yes, my name is Kim Hector. I've been a resident of Grants Pass for 24 years, a law-abiding resident of Grants Pass, I might add. And I'm opposed to it in regard to the 87-space RV park that's proposed for it. This gentleman mentioned the traffic, but...
We're just speaking about the property line vacation right now.
So I have to wait until we discuss the RV park?
We're not discussing the RV park. We're speaking about a property line vacation right now.
Okay. Thank you anyway.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak on the property line vacation?
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'm Margaret Sundin McCann. I live at 327 Southwest Wagner Meadows Drive in Grants Pass, and I'm opposed to the vacation of the property line if this will help prevent the RV park from being established.
My name is Mike Pelfrey. I also live in the city of Grants Pass, and I'm going to also say that I'm opposed to this as well, primarily because you're planting a seed that will ultimately lead to this development of an RV park. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Colleen Hector, and I'm strongly opposed to this and have been extremely upset the last week. I have a dog in the fight. When am I going to be able to talk about the potential hazard of this?
Well, this portion of the hearing is about the property line vacation, and then next we will address the annexation of the property into the city limits
Will it be tonight?
in about 5 minutes.
Oh, great, thank you.
Anybody else wanting to speak on the property line vacation? Step forward.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. Now, one person owns both of these properties, and he wants to be able to develop them together into a larger piece than it would be otherwise, and make them both useful to him. And this hearing is not about what he might do with it. So please grant his request.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak?
Hi, my name is Cassidy Smoots. I live on Topaz Lane. I'm 500 feet from the properties in question. I apologize, my voice is a little shaky. I haven't been to one of these before. But I felt it was important that I show up because I am strongly opposed to this. Getting rid of the property line, like others stated, I think it moves the seat along on developing an RV park. I think before moving forward with removing this property line to develop an RV park, there should be more consideration put in for the community surrounding it. There is a school with children that walk by it daily, and that RV park going to be regulated. And I am not sure if both lands have been developed. I'm aware that one has been developed, but I think that an environmental study would be helpful in this situation due to the traffic, the school, the park. So again, I'm strongly opposed to this and hope there's more consideration put into it.
Is there anybody else wanting to speak on this issue? Please step forward and state your name.
Judy Aarons, I shop a lot in Grants Pass. I'm a resident of Josephine County. If I understand this correctly, we're just talking about the property lines, but I think we're the people here that just spoke against it is their concerns. What's going to develop from it? You know, you mentioned health and safety and all that stuff, but after somebody combines that, it's kind of like after the fact that what are we going to do with it now? And sometimes we do, oops, we made a mistake, or people did something that wasn't what they said they were implied that they wanted to do. So I'm totally for the ones that are concerned against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Please step forward and state your name. Oh, we already spoke?
I did, but I think there needs to be a correction.
I think everybody just gets one turn, sir. I'm
Can I
sorry.
just make a correction, though? I don't think he owns both parcels yet. I think he
Our
owns
city
portions.
attorney is advising me no. Thank
Okay.
you. Is there anybody else who's wanting to speak? All right. At this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask staff to remind us of the criteria that need to be considered in regards to the application.
Here's the criteria, Mayor. The resultant property configuration does not create a substandard condition relative to the requirements of this code. This is kind of a wonky way of saying you can't create a new lot after the vacation that doesn't meet frontage or is, too small, or maybe doesn't have the right, potential issues with setbacks. Number two, it's not contrary to the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience of any other purpose of Article 17. Article 17 is the lot division article of the city of Grants Pass, and so that has regulations related to access as well as some environmental issues, things like that. So those are the things that you have to find.
Thank you. And are those the only criteria that can be considered regarding this decision?
They are.
Thank you. Is there any other staff comments?
Not on the property line vacation.
Thank you. Did the property, the applicant have any additional comments that you wanted to make?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll close the public hearing and turn the decision over to the council for discussion. Joel.
So I think the criteria are fairly clear. I did hear some opposition to the change. It's not going to stay a vacant field forever. Grants Pass is growing.
Put it next to your house.
Sir, there, no outbursts, please.
And there's several parks down in other different parts of the town that work very well. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to adopt the ordinance vacating the common property lines, just talking about the property lines between tax lots 500 and 600 of map number 360613DD and have it read title only, first reading.
Thank you. Seconded by Valerie. Any discussion on the motion? All right. No discussion. Joel, you made the motion to adopt the property line vacation. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property lines between tax lots 500 and 600 of map number 360613DD.
Valerie?
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that, this is a quasi-judicial, meaning that we have to follow those criteria and those criteria only. That's it. Otherwise, LUBA, whatever, will come right back at us. We've had it happen, and it's not a good thing to go on. So with that, I'm going to move to approve the ordinance vacating the property lines between tax lots 500 and 600 of map number 360613DD. Second reading.
Is there a second? Seconded by Rick. Discussion on that motion? All right. Valerie, you made the motion to adopt. How do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property lines between tax lots 500 and 600 of map number 360613DD.
Thank you. And now we are going to have a slight agenda change here so that we can stay on the same topic here with item 2A. At this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an application.
This isn't
It is. The attorney has advised me that I should read this. To annex the property located at 2000 Southwest Bridge Street, map number 360613DD, tax lots 500 and 600 into the city limits. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition to the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding this application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, members of the public. So we just reviewed the same property. This hearing, this application tonight is the annexation application. The property has had city zoning for many years, general commercial zoning. but it has been within the urban growth boundary, not annexed. So the action before you tonight is whether you bring it in to the actual city limits. The zoning is already general commercial zoning, which is a city zone. So the city's policy is before allowing any new development to have it be in the city limits because they are asking to hook up to city water, hook up to city sewer, et cetera. So that is the driving force behind why the applicant is asking to be annexed. So if approved, it would annex about 6.83 acres. And again, we're talking about the Southwest Lincoln Road, Southwest Bridge Street intersection. Here's a map, very familiar to you from the last application, that shows the 6.83 acres. Again, that L-shaped piece there, that is the subject of the annexation. So under the Oregon statutes, specifically 222.125, the city can annex land without an election, a vote, or a public hearing if either 100% of the property owners consent or there's a triple majority. You have seen a few triple majority annexation applications over the last year and a half or so. This one is not that case because you only have a triple majority annexation when you have more than one owner. In this case, you're only talking about one owner. The second bullet there, the owners are Stephen and Cynthia Seiler. They own the property and they requested on February 7th to have their lots annexed. The city surveyor reviewed the legal description and verified that property is contiguous to the city limits. You cannot annex into the city unless you're contiguous to the city. That has been verified. Up on the screen is the letter that we received from Stephen and Cynthia Seiler requesting to be annexed. And there are 6 criteria to annex property. I think given the concern that we have in the room tonight and the importance of this for the council, I'll go ahead and read these into the record so that it's clear what your criterion are. Number 1, the proposed property is located within the Grants Pass urban growth boundary area and the area is contiguous with the existing city boundary. Number 2, the proposed property is developed or will be developed consistent with city standards. Number 3, the proposal is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan at such a time as the state has acknowledged that plan, or the proposal is consistent with LCDC goals prior to an acknowledgement of the city's comprehensive plan. LCDC is the Land Conservation Development Commission. Number 4, the proposal is consistent with this code. This code is referring to the development code of the city of Grants Pass. Number 5, the proposal is consistent with the provisions of the Oregon revised statutes. Those are in 222. I just referred on a couple slides ago to one of those. There's several other standards in the statutes related to annexation. And then number 6, the city of Grants Pass has sufficient capacity to provide the property with basic urban services such as municipal water, sanitary sewer, fire protection, and police protection. So those are the 6 criteria that you have to find in favor, and you have to find all 6. You can't just find 4 of the 6. All 6 have to be met before the council can approve annexation. So if you do approve it, the legal description and then the map basically go to the Josephine County Assessor, the Department of Revenue to make their formal boundary adjustments, which moves those 2 parcels that are currently unincorporated into incorporated status.
Go ahead, Rob.
Brad, on annexation criteria 2, if you go back to that, it says proposed property is developed or will be developed consistent with city standards. Does that say that it must be, okay, should that more clearly read, the proposed property is developed to city standards, or if developed, must be to city standards? Because the way I read this now, it basically means it has to be developed. Now, it doesn't have to be developed, correct? If it's annexed in, it doesn't have to be developed. This is, again, a separate issue from the development. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct. I think.
Then the verbiage on number 2 isn't great, but could be interpreted more than one way.
Right, and of course,
yeah,
you, staff, inherited this from more than 20 years ago. I mean, this language has been there a long time, so it is what we have. Property is developed or will be developed. I think from our standpoint, the way we read that is, you know, is there some obvious impediment that would not allow the property to be developed? To your point, Councilor, we have several properties that are annexed in the city limit that are not developed. I don't think the point is, you know, yes, it's going to be. The point is, could it be? And is there some obvious impediment on the property that would prohibit it or prevent it from being annexed?
But again, like the last issue, this essentially standalone and doesn't necessarily mean an RV park or anything else is going to go in there. This is a standalone request and for an annexation. It's got nothing to do with the future development necessarily. Is that correct?
That is correct. This annexation application is focused just on, do you want it in the city limits or not?
Let's wait just a second, and he can finish his presentation, and then we'll go into questions.
Well, I was just about there.
Almost there.
Yeah, this is the last slide, actually. It's the annexations are at council's discretion. There's a couple of motion alternatives up there. You could adopt the ordinance to annex the Seiler property into the city limits. You could continue the hearing to obtain new information. You could deny it. The recommendation before you tonight is to move to adopt.
Okay, we have a number of questions. Dwayne, then Rick, then Valerie.
I got several questions for you. Do we meet all these 6 criteria right now for this annexation?
Yes.
Okay. Did we not just annex a piece of property on Lincoln like a month or 2 ago, across the street from this property on Lincoln?
We did.
And was there any complaints about that being done at the time?
We did not receive any written comments and no testimony at the city council.
For that property being annexed?
For that one on the west side.
Yeah, on the west side, okay. And if we were not hearing about a property line or annexation today, would we be hearing anything about what's going to be built on this for the council here, anything?
Only if the planning commission action is appealed.
Okay, so we would not be hearing, again, anything about what they're going to do to this property if it wasn't for the annexation or the property line adjustment?
Under an RV, as an RV park, that's correct. There are some proposals in the general commercial zone that do require to come before you, but very few. Most of them, they are set up to go before the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, then Valerie.
Thank you, Brad. So out of curiosity, are there any other properties abutting this that have not been annexed at this time? That you're aware of?
I believe on the opposite side of the street, that has not been. If you just give me a second, I can look that up. So all of the properties adjacent are in the urban growth boundary. The properties on the south side of Bridge are annexed. The others are not.
Thank you.
Valerie. Okay, and I'm just going once again to the clarification, which I think Dwayne was also getting at, is that a public hearing needs to be held as we had it tonight on any line vacation, any property line vacation that is required that goes to council, correct? And then we have the criteria, quasi-judicial, only use certain criteria. Annexation is not required as a public hearing, am I correct? If 100% of people being annexed in, it is not something that really needs to be.
That is correct, Counselor.
Okay, so once again, that is really not a time to talk. I mean, if people are here because they want to dispute and not have it, the only avenue they really have is to appeal the decision made by, am I correct? To appeal it, and if it's appealed, it will then come to us. I just want clarity, because I don't, obviously a lot of people came up to talk, so it's just like, this is not the time and the place to do it. The time and the place to do it to the council would be if it was appealed and sent to council. So I just don't want them to feel frustrated that they came and there's nothing we can do, because legally we're bound by what we have to do with the property lot vacation and with the annexation, which they own the property, they're contiguous, it's developable. If they develop it, they have to do it, whatever it is, to city standards. So I just want clarity on what I'm saying. So I'm going to ask.
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right. I actually had to ask Wade, because I'm new here, but I had to find out what because I've heard stories about an RV park and whatnot, and so the criteria before you for annexation, for property line vacation are just strictly limited and circumscribed to the criteria for that planning action. You can't take into account any potential future development possibilities, even if there's a pending application. The time to contest an RV park or whatever it may be, I'm not exactly certain, but the time to contest whatever that may be would be at the public hearing, which would likely go to a planning commission hearing for something like that, and then it would be appealable to city council.
Has it gone to the UAPC?
The major site plan hearing was last Wednesday.
Okay. So at this point, it would need to be appealed.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make that clear to the public, that as to we're kind of bound by the laws of what we are actually doing on the property line vacation and the annexation.
Rob.
And how much time does the public have to appeal that hearing?
They have 12 days from the date of action, date of the findings of fact. So, what is it? March 27th? March 27th.
Is that the date for the findings of fact or the
No,
deadline?
that's the appeal deadline, correct? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So, yeah, the appeals are 12 days after the findings of fact are approved, which is March 27th. So they would have 12 days after March 27th to submit an appeal application to community development.
So to your office?
Yes.
Thank you.
Was that your question, Rob? Okay. All right, any further questions? Brian?
Brad, can you go back to the slide that has the 6 criteria, please? So a lot of those criteria are pretty cut and dry. The one that seems somewhat subjective is criteria 6. The city has sufficient capacity to provide the services listed. Is there any sort of more objective criteria or detail to that number 6, or is that all the wording there is for that criteria?
That's 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is sewer on both the Lincoln frontage and the bridge frontage. There's water and sewer on the bridge frontage today.
Any additional questions? All right. Did the applicant want to speak on behalf of this request?
Again, Lanny Hickey. I just want to thank Brad once again for the presentation. It's pretty, seems to be pretty straightforward. The proposal for the annexation, the property owners, as he stated, it's 100% ownership by the Silers, and it's contiguous with the city boundary currently. So, and also it is got City of Grants Pass zoning, so it just would make sense that this would be annexed into the city at this point.
Any questions for the owner? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please. Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak against the application? In opposition to the application, please come forward, state your name, and let us know whether or not you live in the city. And please remember that this is limited to the annexation and not use of the property.
Mark Seligman, Selma, Oregon. You know, Bob Hope said, I'm sure some of you may know who that was, he said, buy on the outskirts of town. Well, Grants Pass has a habit of annexing property that's on the outskirts of town, urban growth boundary. At some point, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And people get annexed into the city that don't really want to be because of things like this. Now, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that Lincoln Road is like a demarcation of county and city. It appears that way. I was looking at a piece of property, keep going on G Street a little bit, it becomes Lower River Road, and there's a property for sale right there. My real estate agent said, do not buy it, because eventually the city will go that far. It's like this behemoth, this creature that just crawls and annexes and annexes and annexes, and you can't do anything about it. The issue here is this. Grants Pass has cried and moaned for years. We need more taxes. We need more fees. We need a water plant. We need this. We have, yet you want to increase your sphere of your city. To me, that's a hypocritical statement. I have a personal interest in this because I will listen to my broker and I will not buy that property because what Bob Hope said 50 years ago doesn't apply anymore. If you don't have the funds and you continually have to ask people for more taxes and more fees, water bill, etc., you should do the prudent, fiscally conservative things and deny this. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. Consider that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak in opposition of the application to annex the property?
Do you want me to state my name again?
Yes, please.
My name is Brendan Gallagher. I live at 1864 Southwest Topaz Lane, and I'm opposed to the annexation.
Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak? Please come forward, state your name, let us know whether or not you live in the city.
Judy Aarons, and I do a lot of purchasing within the city. I live in the county, though. Second to last speaker. I don't know if you've ever seen that pack rat gobble, 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 gobble. It's always gobbling up something. And there is a lot of merit and a lot of truth that if a city doesn't spend its money wisely, annexing would be good because then you bring more people in, you get more taxes. It's just a blatantly clear thing. More people, more taxes. I live in an area where I know up Hamilton, they're starting to gobble up that way, but luckily we live too much in an area where they're not gobbling us up yet. So that gobble, 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 gobble routine is good. And what we can do now, the solution, you're always saying we're complaining, here's the solution. Look at your budget, see what you can eliminate, and see where your budget can be. I can't come to these budget committees, and people are busy out working, they're working hard, I'll put it that mildly, in order to pay all their property taxes, etc. But I think where they want you to come from, if you've got a problem, the problem is an annexation. That's not the problem. Get more people in, higher taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The solution is, let's look at our budget. Let's see what we've got out there and how we can be more efficient. Because, you know, we all expect individual families to do that all the time. People say, oh, I've got to watch my budget. Can't go out to that hamburger tonight. We can't do this. We can't do that because we've got a limited budget. And the more taxes they pay, then the city doesn't get the people going to the movie theaters. They don't go out and shop as much as everything. So it can be a lose-lose situation. We want a win-win situation. And we want you people to look at that and say, how can we do better at budgeting where we're not going out and finding more tax money and doing it annexation-wise, as a couple of speakers before me said, is there's a better way to go. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak tonight? All right, at this time, I'll close the public hearing. Staff, did you have any follow-up comments?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Did the applicant have any follow-up comments? No. All right, I will turn it back to council for discussion. I remind you that this decision needs to be based on the criteria and that it was the applicant is the owner of the property and that they are wanting to be annexed into the city, and this wasn't something put forward by the city to request tax money. Rob, go ahead.
So right now, a question for staff. Right now, these properties are receiving police and fire protection? That's a yes or no?
We're going to have to, I guess I'll look over here to the police to see. Some of the properties that are in the urban growth boundary do and some don't. You have to have a service and annexation agreement in order to get those services. Typically, the service and annexation agreement only applies when you have some type of city service that you're using. In this case, there is not. No. The response would be not from City of Grants Pass at this point.
So annexing this property would create additional burden on our police and fire department. Is that correct?
Yes, but it would also increase our property tax base.
All right, are there further discussion by the council? Vanessa.
Urban growth boundaries are designed to allow growth for the urban area. They are just as they are stated. It is meant for the city to grow into those areas. They are 20-year long-range plans, so there should be a very generic expectation from everyone that if you are in the urban growth area, you will eventually be in the city of Grants Pass, even if you are county zoning. It sounds like this property is currently city zoning. So because all of the criteria is met and this is within the urban growth boundary, I will move to adopt the ordinance annexing parcels 36-06-13-DD, tax lots 500 and 600 into the city of Grants Pass limits and have it read by title only, first reading.
Seconded by Valerie. Any discussion? Brian.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that the city has sufficient capacity to provide additional police and fire services for this property.
Joel?
I just wanted to respond to, Mark wanted me to really listen to him, and I did, Mark, which I appreciate, and I appreciate your words. Budget, you need to pay attention to budget regardless of what we do on this decision. This decision is not contingent upon the budget decision. We need to have our budget be efficient and serve the citizens of Grants Pass, and we will do that regardless of whether this gets annexed or not. And the budget committee starts next May. We're pretty quick. If you're interested in the management of the budget, I'd encourage you to attend those meetings. They're open to you, but it is not directly tied to this project at all, and is not one of the criteria as to what the budget, how this affects the budget. And it doesn't affect my thinking at all. I think more about the property rights and the person bought the property. They have they want to do something with that property. It's zoned a certain way. It is a change that produces conflict, I understand that, and it produces some changed conditions, but it's part of what happens, so.
Rick and then Valerie.
One of the things the city of Grants Pass is facing right now and has really been a burden to us is lack of housing. I realize this action in itself doesn't approve that, but it's a necessary procedure. A lot of people are turning into mobile homes, looking at mobile homes and RVs because the cost of housing is so expensive. And this provides that opportunity if we move forward with this tonight. Thank you.
Valerie.
I would say anybody who has that property, it doesn't matter what they do to it, they're going to need city services. I mean, city services are right there. So it's kind of a silly thing to think that that's just not an obvious place that city services are going to be. And once again, since there's no development on it right now, they're not necessarily paying city taxes, so they're not paying for those services. But if they, as soon as they acknowledge they want those services, they will get those services, but they will also pay for the property taxes for those services and be paying those services. So I think, once again, I'm going to go back to the property rights. If you own the property and it's in that, it's zoned there. In Oregon, Oregon is one of the most difficult cities, most difficult states in the country to expand in because of our LUBA, land use laws. Very strict, which is why a lot of people move to Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, and places where they do not have the land use issues we do. We have an urban growth boundary, and that is what in 2014 we said we will take this in and this is where we will develop. We won't develop outside of that because we're going to preserve forest land, we're going to preserve agricultural land. Very few states have those conditions. And even if you've been following the state with all this housing issues, you know, there's cities that are just begging to expand their urban growth boundary because they need more housing and they need more land. That's probably not something that we will do because we do have land in our urban growth boundary. But since 2014, the people who have that land have been notified that they are becoming, that land will eventually be in the city. So it should be no surprise that that is going to be city land. So once again, this goes with property rights. They own the property. They want to come to city services. They want to, I welcome them because, you know, there's people out there that aren't annexed and they can't vote. They pay because they have service agreements. So they're paying for fire, but they can't vote. So I encourage people to annex themselves so that if they're receiving services, they have the right to vote on them as well. So I will be voting in favor of this.
Dwayne.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the reason why we're here today is annexation. And we were here 2 months ago on Lincoln Road, right across from this, to annex that property in. And I don't believe that there was anybody in this room that was upset about that property being annexed in. So now that we have this property and we know that the intentions of the owner to do what they want to do on the property you don't like, you were here today, but you weren't here in January when the other property was annexed in on Lincoln Road. So it's really conflicting for me to think about this as, are we really protesting the annexation or are we protesting what the person wants to do on the property? And that's conflicting to me because I'm really strong about property rights and people doing what they want on their property within the law. And I don't think that's what we're talking about right now. I think we're talking about the legal right to bring this into the city limits, and the owner wants to do that. And again, you know, I would believe most of you weren't here in January when we brought the Lincoln property in. So we're really talking, you're here because you don't want them to build an RV park. So, and I'm not here to judge what the people want to do on the property. I'm here to annex the property in if it's legally allowed to. So that's what I'm going to be voting on, is the annexation of this property. And that's how I have to vote today, is on the annexation of the property, not what they want to do on this property.
Brian, then Rob.
Criteria 6 is not met. We don't have any additional capacity in police and fire. We're actually severely under capacity, as we all well know. We're 2 to an engine on fire. We're understaffed at the police department, so we do not have sufficient capacity to provide police and fire services to any new annexed property. And I would even go so far as to say we should put a moratorium on annexing property until that issue is resolved, because that criteria is going to be not hit again and again on every annexation. And I'll also go ahead and call for the vote.
Rob?
Yeah, I agree with virtually all of what Brian just said. I agree with actually what everyone said. And last year when we had an annexation at RCC, I believe, and I believe I asked the question of the police chief, you know, can you handle the extra load? And he said, you know, we can do it. And whatever extra load there would be, whatever extra load there would have been. And since that time, you know, I'm more wary. And I understand that the more we annex, the greater the tax base, but quite frankly, it almost seems that mindset is a Ponzi scheme, because the more we annex, the further we get behind, and that's just the way it's been for the last 20 years here. In this case, we're going to have to essentially write more red ink to have police and fire there. And I'm going to vote no on this, and I apologize to the property owner, because I understand that it's clear you want to be in the city. I'm just going to apologize that our city isn't ready to handle that load. And I don't think there's a councilor up here tonight that actually has explained how they think that the city can handle that load as far as police and fire. No one's mentioned it. They all talk about property rights, that's true. They all talk about growth, they all talk about 20-year plans. All of that's true. But no one is actually, except for Brian, has actually asked the question about how we actually can afford this, because it's clear in the last 6 months to a year that we don't have an answer for that. So I'm going to have to vote no.
Is there any further discussion? Vanessa?
I don't think we've consulted law enforcement on this decision this evening, but I can say for certain in the discussions we've had with our public safety woes is that we're hearing from police that they are burnt out and that morale is low, but they're certainly still showing up when you call 911. So I'm not sure where this is coming from, that we wouldn't be able to sustain services there. We are certainly having issues within being understaffed and having burnout and morale, but they're still showing up. So I don't think that there is an issue with response in that sense, that they will be showing up.
Audience, please refrain from discussing.
Nothing further, thank you.
Well, it's not the time. This is the council's meeting. This is the council's time for discussion, and no outbursts from the audience. Are we ready to vote? Okay. Vanessa, you made the motion to approve the annexation. How do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Brian?
No.
DJ?
Yeah.
Motion passes 6-2.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass annexing the property located at 2000 Southwest Bridge Street, map number 360613DD, tax lots 500 and 600 into the city limits.
Okay, and because this one was not unanimous, we'll have the issue for a second reading at our next meeting in, the first Wednesday of April. And then also just to remind the audience that the issue that you are concerned about regarding the RV park will be heard by with the findings of fact, decision will be made by the UAPC next Wednesday, and then you have 12 days after that approval to submit an appeal. But let's jump back on our...
Mayor, just so everyone knows, UAPC is Urban Area Planning Commission.
Thank you, yes. Okay, let's go back on our agenda here to item 1D, which is another public hearing. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing to consider an application that would vacate the common property line between tax lots 8300 and 8400 of map number 36-05-20-CB. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant Statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition to the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information that they have received prior to this meeting regarding the application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It is important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and public. This application is right next door to the application you heard first tonight. This is on Rogue River Highway and Maple Lane. They are requesting to vacate the property line that runs east-west between the parcels that are here on the screen that are yellow. This is again right at the northwest corner of Rogue River Highway and Maple Lane. They have general commercial zoning today, and the applicant would like to consolidate their properties. This is related to On Track to develop a residential treatment and supportive housing project. Here's just a look at the assessor's map that shows the two parcels today. They are proposing to construct a parking lot on the northern piece here, and to have both the parking lot and the existing building be on the same property. So here is the proposed layout, the site plan that On Track has put forward to the city. Again, the intersections here on the bottom right, this is the existing building in brown. What you have today is an older, pretty kind of dilapidated house that's sitting there off of Maple Lane. So they're proposing to demolish that and then put the parking lot in. But you reviewed that a couple of meetings ago. Tonight, again, it's to remove the property line. And there are the two criterion, which I think this is the first. You've had 3 of these in one night, so you're very familiar with these. No comments were received on this application. And here's the call to action date with a recommended motion.
Thank you, Brad. Are there any questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Okay. And was there somebody here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't need it. Okay. Evening, councilors. Justin Gerlitz Engineering Consultants. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Not a whole lot. I think this one's pretty simple. We're just removing an existing structure. Therefore, we didn't need the dual property lines. It just cleaned up the project. And so a simple request is to vacate this line, maintain the existing line between the two buildings that are going to remain for the project. And with that, I'll ask if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? Valerie?
Yeah, I just have a question about, but they'll have another lot next door, correct? So this is just the one between the building right now and the parking lot, or does it include the other building? Isn't there another building to the side?
Yeah, this is just, if we can go back here, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
This is just the line that runs about right here between the existing house that's at the bottom that's going to be removed and the existing structure on top. So there's still an existing property line that runs down in between the buildings that will remain, and the parking lot will cross both of those within an easement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Was there anyone from the audience who wanted to speak on behalf of this application? And is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition of the application? No? All right, we'll close the public hearing and turn it back to council for discussion. Go ahead, Joel.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and move to adopt the ordinance vacating the common property line between tax lots 8300 and 8400 of map number 36-05-20-CB and have it read by title only, first reading.
Seconded by Valerie. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, we're ready to vote. Joel, you made the motion to approve the ordinance. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property line between tax lots 8300 and 8400 of map number 360520CB.
Valerie?
I move to approve the ordinance vacating the property lines between tax lot 8300 and 8400 of map number 36-05-20-CB, second reading.
Thank you. Seconded by Vanessa. Any discussion on that? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to approve. How do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass vacating the common property line between tax lots 8300 and 8400 of map number 360520CB.
Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda, we're going to move to item 2B, council action item, to consider a resolution to override the veto of ordinance number 24-5888. And our interim city attorney, Mark Bartholomew.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the title of this presentation is uses the word veto, and I'm going to point out that the charter actually doesn't specifically use the word veto, but it describes a process by which the mayor can do what is commonly known as a veto. So I call it a veto in here, but you won't find that word in the charter. So council consideration for an override of the mayor's veto to ordinance 24-5888 relating to the council goal of leadership. So the process that the process for the veto is outlined in the charter, and it's here in the second bullet point. Essentially, after an ordinance is approved by council, I think this was approved 5-3. The mayor can do three things. The mayor can sign an ordinance, which approves it. The mayor can just let it go stale after a 3-day period, at which time it's automatically deemed approved, or the mayor can make the volitional act of disapproving of it and has to provide those reasons for disapproval, which we're calling the veto. And so the mayor followed that prescribed procedure. Then the charter provides that at the next meeting after the mayor's veto, council shall essentially re-vote on it. So I think in the past we potentially talked about it being a resolution to override the veto. Really, when you read the charter, what it is that the charter requires a re-vote of the ordinance. And in that re-vote, if 6 councilors vote in favor of the ordinance, then it passes despite the mayor's veto. If fewer than 6 vote in favor of it, then the mayor's veto prevails. So the charter is specific. It has to be done tonight. So call to action is to vote on it. In fact, the specific language, it says, and such ordinance or resolution shall be put upon its passage again, and if 3/4 of all members constituting the council shall vote in favor of such ordinance or resolution, it shall thereafter become a law without the approval of the mayor. So there's really no option actually not to take any action. You need to vote again is the upshot here. So, and the charter also requires that someone, and I've nominated Karen for it, that someone read the mayor's reasons for objecting to the ordinance. So I'm going to let Karen take it away, read that, because that's part of the procedure here tonight, then I'm going to sit back down at the dais and I'd be happy to take questions there.
I am vetoing the Humanitarian Services Ordinance because it would add an unnecessary layer of bureaucracy and red tape in city parks. I believe this ordinance is expedient, redundant, and opens the door to potential liability against the city. To be clear, I am strongly opposed to the use of drugs in our city parks. It is already illegal under Municipal Code 5.57.150 to possess or deliver drugs, needles, and other paraphernalia in city parks and public properties. It is already illegal to have propane tanks and kerosene tanks on public property under Section 5.57.200. And Chapter 4.07 already regulates special events on public property, including established standards for denial and an appeals process without singling out specific type of use as the proposed ordinance does. If this council is serious about reducing the homeless presence in our parks, I have a suggestion. Stop the tactics of criminalization and excessive regulation that only burden law enforcement and start to focus on actions that will provide shelter for unhoused people so we can reclaim our parks. Sarah Bristol, Mayor, City of Grants Pass.
All right, Council, the city attorney is advising that his recommendation is not to do public comment on this, but we normally, our past practice has been to allow public comment on all council action items, so I'm going to ask,
Point of order.
I'm asking you to decide whether you'd like to hear public comment on this topic or not.
So I'm going to comment. Mayor and I just had a brief discussion about whether there should be public comment. And I told her this is a revote of what you've already heard. And the public's already had a chance to talk on it. And so based on that, I said, we don't have to have a public hearing. We do lots of public hearings here at times when we aren't required by law to do it. So the choice is the council's, but I let the mayor know we don't have to do one.
Valerie. Well, I was going to say, we did a public hearing on the annexation, and that was not required either. So I think this evening we did that, and so we did that. It would be, whenever you go back against, it would be to not do it again. So I am in favor of public comment.
Okay, Council, are you supporting doing public comment?
I want public comment.
Rob? Okay. It was fine with me, for the record. I was relaying what I was advised. So with that, first, do you have any questions for staff regarding this issue? Rob?
Yeah, 2 questions for Mark. So at this point, can this ordinance be amended in any way?
No. If you want to have an amended ordinance, my recommendation would be to vote down or, not to have the 6 votes. Then you have to come back with something different. You've got to have proper notice for any amended ordinance.
So after a no vote, so to speak, is there a time frame before it can be brought back?
I don't believe so. I know what you're thinking of is a 1-year time frame on, a restriction on it, bringing an ordinance back. If you were to bring it back identical to what perhaps is going to be voted down, then there would be the 1-year restriction. If you're changing it a little bit, you can bring it back as soon as you get the public notice out there.
Any other questions? Valerie?
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned in here, and I was just wondering if you had talked with the police chief or the police, and so since we have a policeman here, I will ask him. It says that the regulation of putting a permit to have services is would that be excessive, a burden on law enforcement?
I think the main distinction for police, and this goes back to the last conversation as well about the annexation, is, you know, Councilor Ogier said it, if the call goes out, we're going to come. Where you get into the, you know, where we're hurting, that's going to be reflected in the response time. So it's going to depend on the priority of the call that's occurring, like a major assault that's occurring a couple blocks away right now that has a bunch of our officers tied up. So depending on the, you know, the severity of the call is going to determine when we get there. We're gonna go, but when we go is really the question.
Are there other questions? All right, we'll open this issue up for public comment. So I'm going to go ahead and read the rules now regarding public comment. It's an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on this one issue. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the issue. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will discuss the issue and make their decision. The meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, and other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. With that, I want you to come forward. Please state your name. Let us know whether or not you live in the city limits. There is a light system here, so when the yellow light comes on, it means you have 30 seconds left to speak, and when the red light comes on, it means your time is up. Thank you. Please state your name.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Bristol. My name's Ruth Daly, and I live in Grants Pass. I want to express my wholehearted thank you to Council members Auger, Pell, and De La Grange for voting no on Ordinance 5.58, Regulation of Humanitarian Service Events on Publicly Owned Property, and to Mayor Bristol for vetoing it. Grants Pass has a lovely history of humanitarian efforts in our parks, our community reaching out to those in need. We have heard from Council repeatedly in its different incarnations that it is community response that is needed in helping our neighbors, not specifically the city's burden. To craft an ordinance to oversee humanitarian efforts in the parks by Grants Pass community members was folly from the start. I urge the entire council to support the mayor's veto of this unnecessary ordinance. And I also just want to make a comment. We're always instructed before we give public comment and asked to be courteous. Mr. Dabber has now yelled out cuss words. Mr. Pelfrey loves to do it every time. I would hope that we could get that to stop. Thank you very much.
Hi, David Dapper, city resident. Just yesterday, you know, the nonprofits come and they set like clothing stands up. Actually, looks like a flea market or a park. Our neighborhood is not that very big, as most of you know, and it's overwhelmed. There isn't a parking space left. I've walked in and be told to bounce, to leave the park. What, I can't be here? Okay, just yesterday, there was 2 junkies fighting and there was gunshots. This is what's happening in our park. We're pleading with you. I know you guys are fond of the nonprofits and some of your board members, which seems like a conflict of interest, but aren't you supposed to represent us tax-paying citizens and homeowners also? We're pleading for your help to get some kind of control over our parks. It's just berserk what's going on out there. And please, even though it may not make you feel good, to give us some kind of sanity in our neighborhoods and control the gunfire. I guess it doesn't bother you unless there's a dead body, like in Riverside. We've been pleading with you for some kind of help with the nonprofits taking over our parks. It's not what they were meant for. Your citizens are pleading for your help. Now, will you please give us some semblance of sanity in our park? And I beg you, if some of you are board members of a nonprofit,
that's a conflict of interest, I beg you, please consider that also. But we need some help, people. And you do represent us too, not just the junkies that are out there fighting and shooting each other. And there should be some law about, you're always asking if there's someone that has a conflict of interest. What do you call that?
Please step forward, state your name, and you pull the mic down a little so we can hear you better.
I'm Chris Underwood, and I live in Grants Pass near a park. And I just wanted to say that I support the veto of the city ordinance. As housing prices and interest rates and rental prices continue to balloon, our houseless neighbors are going to continue to grow. And with the opportunities for funding for affordable housing being taken out from under us, places like that storage unit, I'm really glad that you approved that, because we're going to need the space for people to put their stuff since they won't be able to afford housing. I would just like to say the complex issues we're facing in the park are only hindered by adding additional bureaucratic wall for us to climb over to help our most vulnerable population. Until the residents of Grants Pass can come up with a solution other than jailing people for trying to exist on a planet that they were born on, I beg you to please let us do our work. Unhindered.
Dale Aldridge, City of Grants Pass. A few minutes ago, a great attorney sat there and put all the parties together, put this thing together, and made it very clear. We got the nonprofit's opinion, we got the public's opinion, we got the lawyer's opinion. He leaves, we have a great vote, we're happy, and then all of a sudden, veto. I had to read up why. Why? Oh, because we're going to get sued. Well, go back a couple of years ago. You got sued because you didn't follow the people and get a place for people to go. Now we got it all the way up to the Supreme Court because we can't get the idea that we're going to get sued. We're going to get sued no matter what. Someone's going to die in the park, you're going to get sued. Take that off the thing. When they go into the parks, there's no accountability. $11 million is spent in this community on homeless. And what do we have for that? One person clean. And almost $3 million just to assist people in housing, because that's one of our worst things. We don't have the housing. We've got to stop this afraid of being sued. We're community people. You have not seen those parks after a nonprofit comes through and there's trash. We now officially have dumpsters in every single park. Just moved a new one in the Riverside West. Every park's got dumpsters. And they have locks on them. And guess what? They pop the locks off to get more stuff out all over the place. All we're asking is them to when they go into the park and you have a person there that needs help, be accountable. That's the whole point of that thing, was to be accountable. What are they doing for those people? Who are they helping? What are they giving out? Go into the parks after a nonprofit's been there and look at all the trash. It's amazing, just out of control. The food, same thing. We need to get accountability of these people. You can't spend that kind of money and let people just run rampant. You know, I talked to a guy the other day, he's on drugs, and he sat there and said, you know something? They gave me counseling sessions. We were built for those counseling sessions. The guy's not going to get clean until we get that center open, which I applaud you. You got one open. Medford's got one for 10. We're going to have one for 15. We got a major problem here. We have a major problem with drugs in that park. All right, you go to Riverside Park, best you've seen it never, because the drug dealers have moved over to Tessie now, right next to this gentleman's house. You know, and they're rampant. They're out in the open. But please make the nonprofits somewhat, we're not asking a big thing on it. We're just asking them to tell us what they're doing, why they're there, who they're helping, instead of just their pockets. Thank you.
Somebody else wanting to speak?
Hello, Victoria Marshall. I live in the city. I'm reading from
our city ordinances, legislative hearing guidelines. And I'm going down to reading, scrolling down here, just a moment, please. Conflict of interest, because we have one here. And so I guess I'm a little nervous and trying to find it here again, so sorry about that. I wanted to read it directly. This is 9.040 conflict disclosure. Potential conflict of interest. A potential conflict of interest shall mean any transaction wherein a person acting in a capacity as a public official takes any action or makes any decision or recommendation, the effect of which would be to the private pecuniary benefit or detriment of the person or member of the person's household. So any action taken, which would include a veto, would be, when you have a conflict of interest, would be something that our city does not allow. And now I'm looking at the website for UCAN. Sarah Bristol, Grants Pass City Mayor, is an appointed or an elected public official of UCAN. We have a conflict of interest. So I just wanted to make sure to state that for the record. And now I'll continue on and just say that the nonprofits are abusing our city. The situation exists, probably 55% or so, maybe even more, because of the nonprofits. It is in their best interest to make sure homeless people stay in the parks because they receive money to serve the people in the parks. Those people are not served in the parks. They're dying in the parks. So this is not a humanitarian thing that is happening for the people in the parks. There's many humanitarian things that do happen. I go and I speak to a lot of those people personally one-on-one and minister to them. Conflict of interest, and we need to reel in nonprofits, so please do so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandy Rourke. I'm a resident of Grants Pass. I do want to apologize for my outburst. I'm so sorry about that. That was very unprofessional. Sorry about that. But if a person is a member of UCAN, they should abstain themselves. They should remove themselves for any decision in the council meetings regarding the nonprofits, especially one under the UCAN. For any and all decisions or comments made by that person would be biased. And let's see, decision to veto council's decisions for the nonprofits to abide and follow rules and guidelines should be stricken and removed completely from any comments. Thank you.
Mark Seligman, Selma, Oregon. I've said this before regarding the homeless issue. I understand the people's feelings who don't want their parks back. They have every right to that. On the other hand, these are human beings. You cannot go back to where it was 10 years ago where you criminalized the homeless. Unfortunately, this entire city council has listened to their lawyers. Dump your lawyers. Find a solution. You're not going to run these people out of the park, but you can build a shelter. But you're not doing either one. You're not running them out of the park and you're not building a shelter. Both sides have a good point. But what you are doing as a city council is taking it to the Supreme Court in the hope that they rule with you so you can recriminalize them again. So citizens on both sides of this issue have every right to be displeased. Whether you're a liberal sitting there or a conservative, you are not doing your constituents a service. Now, state funding, that's a very important thing. If you don't have the money, there's state funding available. Unfortunately, our distinguished counselor, State Rep, Mr. Yunker, voted no on housing. You need housing in Grants Pass. He voted no on homeless solution.
Point of order.
Mark, we're just talking about.
I am talking about a
You
homeless
can't make comments
situation.
to individuals.
This is a homeless situation in the park that I'm talking about. I'm talking about rental assistance. I'm talking about housing. These are all related. But our state representative have voted no.
You can't call out, you can't call out a
What else
single
can I
counselor.
say? This is what's going on. I'm running against him. I would vote yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, remind everyone, campaigning for public office and addressing individuals is against the rules previously stated.
Judy Ahrens, I shop in Grants Pass. Regarding this issue, I'm looking at the last part of 2B, and it says public-owned property. That's us. People that work hard, these people have, where you go get your donuts at 6, people up at 5 o'clock, 4, making the donuts and everything. These are hardworking people. They would like to use our parks too. And I think what we've heard people say, dead bodies found in the parks, fighting going on in the park. The police department has to do extra in the park. I just saw even the ambulance was over there, over by Fruitdale School. There's that park where the tennis courts are, and there was an ambulance over there taking care of, all these good free social services. And you remember, I forget who said that saying, but, give them the freebies, they'll come. I don't know if it was Ronald Reagan or one of them, but if you provide the free goodies, they'll come. My point is, with the media being here, I had asked them, they said, check with your managers. We need, whoever you want to use, go visit them, go chat with them. People out here have, because they're so frustrated with them. And we don't allow them to think that we're harassing them. But you would be amazed at the people that don't live here. I mean, I've talked to some of them from Nevada, and I've talked to them from South Carolina, and they come. Some people even claim that they bus them in at 2 o'clock in the morning over at one of the reformer bus depot areas. So they come because they love freebies. There's people in our society today that don't like to work, and they just love it when the city council gives them all the freebies or allows all these nonprofits to do their thing. So, but who's suffering? The people and the parents who want to use the park. They want their kids to use the park, and they're afraid to use the parks because of. And then there's a guy that was out there demonstrating. He goes to the parks with a group of people on Sunday, and he picks up needles. When was the last time he got a thank you? What you do when he does come, you kick him out of here. But what he does, he takes his time away from his family to go over to the park with a group of people at certain parks and pick up needles. That person needs a plaque. He doesn't need to be kicked out of the city council. He needs a plaque because he's doing something that, because of the regulations or the lack of regulation, you folks don't allow. So I would just strongly suggest, get back to using our parks. Let the people who work real hard out here, and they work hard, they work many long hours, and they want to use their parks again. They deserve it because it's called public parks, and that's them and that's us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Corey. I'm 37, resident of Grants Pass, and I have a proposed solution for the homeless crisis. And I first want to go through my history to validate my opinion. In my 20s, I traveled extensively, hard living, out of a vehicle. I lived in or passed through 43 different states, influenced by Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception. I became a drug addict. For 7 years, I consumed copious amounts of psychedelics, smoked methamphetamine, injected heroin, drank alcohol, dabbled with fentanyl. 4 years ago, I was living on my grandfather's property and was unexpectedly evicted after he passed away. I had traveled a lot, but this was the first time I was made homeless, and embarrassingly enough, in my hometown. Based on my previous experience, I knew if I put my tent in a park, it was going to be nothing but bad for everyone. There's a subculture of homelessness, and in tent cities, there is no security and there is abundant narcotics. Your personal items will be stolen, and you will be around and offered hard drugs. The scene was only worsened with Measure 110 that decriminalized all narcotics. The vagrant subculture no longer has any accountability, fear of penalties, and there's no motivation to improve their own health. They sit in their tents and do drugs. I'm not saying this based off a theory, I'm saying this based off my
decades of experience in the vagrant subculture. Unregulated tent cities are drug dens. Now that I've explained the problem, I will present what I feel is the most humane and effective solution, and also what worked for me to get healthy, which was when I became homeless. I found a secluded mountaintop on BLM land miles outside of town, because I knew this would prevent me the two conditions to become healthy, which is my personal possessions were safe from theft, and my living situation motivated me to be productive in the sense that I couldn't have all of my basic needs met but just by doing nothing. I became employed, found a rental, and have since been living a healthy, sober life. I completely understand it's not reasonable to expect homeless people to get healthy exactly how I was able to, but they do need the two conditions I had to become healthy, which is security and motivation. It can be compassionately provided by creating an area and facility that has showers, a laundromat, dumpsters, and the freedom to sleep in a tent or vehicle. It must be monitored and policed 24/7 to ensure personal protection of items and civil order. It must also be in a place that isn't residential, yet still close to town and services, because the majority of vagrants don't have transportation. Based upon this, I think the old Spalding Mall is a perfect location. It's industrial, not near schools or homes or tourists downtown, however still close and easily accessible to Walmart, restaurants, and the freeway. With the creation of this facility, Grants Pass would be able to legally and ethically create an ordinance to ban camping in public parks, transforming them from drug dens back into peaceful family places. This would also give the vagrant community a more productive place to exist, and in the long term would be more cost effective than our current system of extensive and ineffective patrolling of all the city parks and cleaning up all the garbage.
Sorry,
and
sir, the
discarded
red light is
homeless.
going off. That means your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Cassie Leach. I live in Grants Pass, and I am here to thank the 3 council members who voted no, and the mayor for vetoing it, and also everyone coming together and working with us for the last few months. People who know this topic very well know that I'm intimately involved. I'm out there every Thursday. And so there's just a few things as I listen to comment that I want to clarify. Number one, UCAN has never come to outreach in the events that we do in Mint. While they are a nonprofit in town, there are hundreds of nonprofits in town, and they do not participate in the Thursday outreach. So I just want to put that out there as point of clarification. Secondly, we do Thursday outreach, right? And everyone knows us for that. But we're out there Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. We take pictures before Thursdays. We take pictures on Fridays. We take pictures of Saturdays. We take pictures of the trash. We take pictures of what's in the trash. Did we bring the trash? If we did, we revisit what we can do better. Most of the time it isn't our trash. Sometimes it is, and we look internally. So to say that we are not sensitive about the trash is completely false. I live right by the parks too, and I like to enjoy them. Also, when I'm doing outreach, I don't want to step over trash, right? And so when we're there, we're picking up the trash. And so just want to point that out as a point of clarification, that that is something that Dave and I can agree on. We don't like the trash. And I do go out to Tussing every Saturday, and I pick up trash. So lastly, the people out there, we categorize them and we put them in these buckets and we call them horrible names. And I just want to remind you all that they're really cool people. They are really good humans who have nothing in this community that we're offering them to help support them and aid them to get out of that situation. No low barrier shelters, no navigation centers, and now you're trying to put permits and rules and regulations on humanitarian people who are not spending nonprofit money fundraised, but our own money out of our personal pocket, then cleaning up trash with the trash bags we bought. And you guys want to put these rules in us so you can track what we're doing. And then we all know people are going to be taking pictures and sending them to the police because now we've left trash. And then the police are going to get way too many calls about humanitarian works. So I'm just saying this all doesn't make sense. I'm glad that the mayor vetoed it. And one thing that I think the people behind me that can't stand me and are probably frustrated with me talking and I can agree on is we're exhausted that nothing's being done. We just want something different. And I've said before at City Council, we're only in the parks because that's where the people are. So thanks.
I'm Bruce Murray. I live just outside Grants Pass in the urban growth boundary area.
and I've lived here for 35 years. I've been a provider and a physician here during that time, and I'm the medical officer for the Mobile Integrative Navigation Team, which is what a lot of this discussion is geared against our nonprofit. And by nonprofit, I also just want to tell you, we're all volunteers. None of us are paid employees of anybody. We do this because there's a need in this community to do something about the people living in our parks. We enjoy our parks here too. I raised my son here. I enjoy the parks. I fish at Schroeder Park. I know how important parks are, but we're focusing on the wrong end of the problem. Why are people living in our parks? We are still lacking.
Point of order, Ms. Tapper.
What happened to people being censored if they speak out? I would like to complete my statement. People are in the parks because they're impoverished, because they don't have a family or a social safety net, and the most important reason is there is inadequate housing. Why aren't we discussing housing? Why aren't we talking about giving people an option rather than to choose to live in a pup tent in the snow, in the rain, in freezing conditions, suffering frostbite and exposure that I have to take care of because there's no other option or place for them to live? Let's direct the attention and the funds and the interest of the community as a whole, and instead of dividing us, let's work on appropriate housing solutions. I'm just shocked that suddenly the word humanitarian has become a dirty word. I take that really personally, because I think that if you look at the definition of a humanitarian, or what a humanitarian effort is, it has to do with wanting to improve the welfare of a population and relieve the pain and suffering of that population. I promise you, not everyone in the parks, quote, are junkies with guns. There are vulnerable people in the park, elderly who have no behavior problems or drug abuse problems at all that need our help. Thank you very much.
I'd like to remind the audience not to interrupt someone who is at the podium speaking, please. Thank you.
Especially me. My name is Mike Pelfrey. I'm a city resident. Earlier in the meeting, the mayor, the first 5 things on the agenda, the mayor clearly spoke about conflicts of interest. If any of the council had conflicts of interest, well, I think several people in the public have brought up that we have concerns about certain persons or person that has, I would call an extreme conflict of interest. If you are on the board of USCAM, I'm sorry, I think it's UCAN, but I refer to it as USCAM, because they are a major part of the homeless industrial complex, which evidently the mayor has decided to be a part of too. So my concern is that, looks like this gentleman was saying about humanitarian services. Well, there's a difference between humanitarian services and enabling. What we are having happen in our parks is enabling. And someone just mentioned, the young lady mentioned that we have over 100 nonprofits. Well, if we have 100 nonprofits, why aren't they working together to solve this problem? No, they're not. They all want their own piece of the pie. Because again, it's a homeless industrial complex. They don't even call them, you know what they call the homeless? They call them clients. Why do you think that is? Why would you call a homeless person a client? Mint, I believe, is getting ready to have a space next to, I believe it's Bi-Mart. So why would we need to keep having services doled out within our parks? I can tell you that if you go to Tussing Park on a Sunday, and all of the clothes, I have never seen so many homeless people that throw away clothes. If they're so homeless and so desperate, why am I seeing clothes everywhere? I would think that we would have a lot of naked homeless people running around, because I see a lot of clothes laying around this town. Shoes as well. I mean, what is it with people and just dropping their shoes? Who does that? You know who does that? People that are sickly addicted on drugs. That's who does that. And what these folks are doing is they are continuing to enable this behavior. If these people want help, then they will go get it. This is not a big town. We have bus services. They can go to USCAM, or they can go to Mint, or any other nonprofit organization. And I would also like to just address this lady, because she did address me about me cussing. I guess it's okay, being that we live in the state of Oregon, that she's going to call me out for saying a curse word, but our state is okay with having children mutilated in our city and in our state. To be mutilated by the state of Oregon, and I have to, I almost said a cuss word, I have to pay for it. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who wanted to speak on this topic?
Catherine, Hamilton County. When we first, before we got to the public comment on this, it was commented that drugs, paraphernalia, propane bottles are not legal in the park. Walk through them, you guys. They're everywhere. For me to see a person sitting at a table and have cars come up and hand off drugs, hand off money, whatever, and they go back to the car and drive away. Find a place to put these people. The gentleman thinks we're being mean to them, they have a right to be there. What about us taxpayers who want to just take our kids to the park and not have to worry about explaining something to my 10-year-old, why that guy's doing the electric boogaloo half-dressed? What's wrong with him, Mom? I don't know what the problem is. If so much money has been handed out to the nonprofits, why can't something be handed to them to find a place, or for you guys to find a place? $11 million would, if that came from the state wants us to have housing, the state wants us to have homeless, the state can help us pay for it. And it comes back to, it's out of my pocket. It's out of their pockets. It's out of you guys' pockets, even though you're not paid up here. You pay taxes. We pay taxes. Find somewhere to put them. This is not fair for anybody. Not fair for them, not fair for us. Then the enablers or the nonprofits or whomever they want to call themselves, medical, whomever, can go take care of these people in one spot. Not this park, this park, this park, this park, this dog ODs on fentanyl. Get them in one place. This is not fair for anybody, including them. Thank you.
I'm Mara and I live here in Grants Pass. I'm actually homeless myself, so I'll have to admit that I actually is looking for housing. I've been on the options housing. Nobody has moved in and out in the last 3 years. I have signed up for HUD. I have signed up for UCAN housing. It is a pain to find housing here in Grants Pass, and it is not easy. There are other people that I know who are homeless who are on housing, and there's no housing available for homeless, and not every homeless person is a drug addict. I don't do any of that. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I keep it to myself. I have really small amount of stuff with me at all times, so it's not easy. And if anybody would walk in our shoes for a day, I'll tell you it is not easy at all. Looking for housing, I even applying for a job, you know, and it is just, there's no housing available. Being on a list for 3 years or more is just not, it's not. And there are programs that are out there that are helpful, like the Mint program and UCAN and other that have the warming shelter. They are being occupied, they are being used, and they are being helpful to the ones that want to be helped that are homeless.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Please step forward.
My name's Scott Swanton. I'm a resident of Grants Pass, and
I understand the situation, however, with the fees of $25, if I wanted to use the park's birthday party for a gazebo, does it cost me money? I believe it does. And I feel that when you go through and you find clothes that's left there or trash, if I threw trash down, I would hope somebody would say, hey, pick up your stuff, pick it up. But don't expect somebody to come out behind you to clean up after you. That's one of the biggest complaints I see is littering. I have to take my blood sugar every day. When I do that, I have to use a Sharps container to dispose of, not even a needle, just the thing to prick my fingers. Yet you go and find people giving out needles with no accountabilities of having to account for the needles once they're used. And it just ain't right.
Do I press a button?
No.
Okay. My name's Melody Swanton, and I live here in Grants Pass. I am blessed because I am a homeowner, and my husband and I both work very hard. We go to jobs every day, even though we're past the typical retirement age. I just kind of am puzzled because during the previous recall effort of the mayor, I remember how it was stated that the mayor has no decision-making power as mayor, and the mayor here only functions as a tiebreaker. So I'm kind of confused why now, when the majority opinion of the city council was in the majority against this measure. I think I've gotten it backwards, but now there's a different story being told that the mayor's position allows the mayor to veto the council's majority opinion on this issue. So I'm kind of concerned. Which way is it? Is it no decision-making on certain things, but now the majority decision can be undone by the mayor's veto? I don't understand that. So I know you can't answer any questions during this time, but it kind of seems convenient that suddenly now the mayor does have the ability to undo the majority decision. I do have a heart for homeless people. I have been blessed in my life. I've never had to live that way. I feel that I would get out there and do something about it rather than live in a tent or not be able to shower or all the other things that go along with it. I personally wouldn't be able to walk the next day if I had to sleep in a tent at my age. And I get really cranky if I can't take a shower on the regular and I start smelling my dirty hair. So I would make a really terrible homeless person. But as I said, I've been blessed in my life that I haven't had to live that way, and I would definitely do everything I could to avoid living that way. I think we're just asking these groups that provide these humanitarian services to be accountable and to be accountable for what they're doing and to actually register and show us all what they're doing and when they're doing it. And I am constantly shocked at full-grown adults that can't pick up their own trash. And I appreciate that these groups are there picking up the trash, but I think a lot of this disposal and littering happens after they've left. Whatever these people are given, apparently a lot of it's just being thrown aside and they can do what they want with it, including not finding a trash receptacle and putting it in. I taught my kids to pick up after yourself. If you make a mess, pick up after yourself. If you have a mess, your trash from the fast food or trash from whatever, find a trash can and put it in there. It doesn't cost any money to put your trash in the trash can and be accountable and a responsible, full-grown human adult. So, that's about all I have to say. So I know this is a sticky issue, but I do pay taxes, and I have a right to use parks that I no longer feel comfortable using. When my husband and I first moved here several years ago, we would go to the park and use the park, and now you can't because you get intimidated and yelled at, and it's dangerous. Thank you.
Rika Brown, Grants Pass. Oh, I love all these people who said we have to put them somewhere. Like they're things. like they can be moved around like chess pieces. You're talking about people here, some of them particularly disorderly, but not all of them. And a lot of those became disorderly because they were having to live in the bushes and down by the river and behind places, and they learned that orderly people avoid littered places. I'm sure it passes, it happens. And I was picking up trash in the parks a good 10 years ago, before it became a thing. And there were also a lot of people doing drugs in the park, and people intimidating people on the steps of at Riverside Park, sitting on the steps and talking to each other and not leaving hardly any room to pass, while I was going past them and picking up with my little litter grabber the litter that they were dropping. There's nothing new about this. The only thing new is that people have to be allowed now to put up tents. Not to fasten them to the ground, by gosh, that will get you kicked out. Not to litter, that will get you kicked out. I live down by West Holm Park, very close, a few blocks away. I've never seen it so neat. And, before the cops started actually telling people that you're out of this park for 30 days because you littered and you wouldn't pick it up. And the same with doing drugs in the park. By gosh, people are getting trespassed from the parks for just that. We do not need this ordinance. Everything is already covered in other ordinances. If you're going to enforce the law, enforce the law. And it seems to me they're enforcing the law as much as they can. What we really need is a place for people to go, that they want to go, like a couple of huge hostels. Thank you.
Is there anybody else wanting to speak?
Hi, I'm Vaughn Dapper, live in the city. I'm going back to the nonprofit thing because that's a lot of concern for me. I feel like we have, I'm going to speak of Tussing. It is so small when you get campers and you get these nonprofits coming to these little parks, it becomes chaos. We've got these tweakers just marching up and down the street, singing, dropping their stuff as they go back to whatever spout they came from. We just want a little control over knowing that they should be into. I mean, why can't the nonprofits serve them in a place that they own, a business? Why does it have to be in the park? It just brings, Tussing gets overwhelmed when we have these nonprofits come. We've got people parking on the no parking lot, and they're all coming to get their freebies. That doesn't make sense, because they now stay there because they got their freebies in a new tent or whatever. But we got to stop having our parks be used for these kinds of things. That's all I feel about it. Thank you.
Is there somebody else?
My name is Helen Cruz. I live here in Grants Pass, former unhoused, but I'm still very active in the homeless community. And I would like to thank the mayor for vetoing this and the others that were in favor of letting the nonprofits stay in the parks as they do. I am one of the people that go out there and I serve lunches every Tuesday at every park that I can hit before I go to work. There's a lot of issues going on here right now, and everybody wants to put blame on everybody else, and everybody doesn't understand the whole big picture of it. You know, there's making nonprofits pay for feeding the homeless is clearly a violation in somebody's right somewhere. Okay? You can't do that. Who has the right to tell somebody when they can eat, and who has the right to tell somebody when they can't? Or who has the right to tell somebody that they can't feed somebody who's hungry? That's absurd. Okay? That is just out of line and inhumane. When it comes to the fact that they don't have a white picket fence, they don't have a nice home, they don't have nice clothing, and these nonprofits go out there and they help them, and they actually do their job very, very well. Now, you know what? I would like to see anybody in front of me or behind me one day in these people's shoes out there. Okay? Because I don't think they could survive. You've got citizens running around acting like they're Superman trying to save the town. They're being vigilantes. You know, they're playing Russian roulette. Okay? Nobody wants anybody to walk into their home. So why are they approaching somebody else's home, even if it is a tent? It's not okay. It is not okay. And laugh all you want, because you know what? They're human. They're not going away. It is an issue. It's a crisis. It's a problem. Okay? These people, they own their homes, like I've said before. I get it. They've got everything. But these other people, the homeless, they have nothing. Give them someplace to go. Give them something to look forward to, instead of an officer at their tent door, or what they call home, or being at risk of having everything they own taken, rolled up like a tortilla, thrown in the back of a truck, and then you can go down and you can pick it up. If you can still put your home back up, as they call it, and these people want to laugh behind me, but it is their home. What right does anybody have to do that? It's not okay. City Council needs to figure something out, because this is not going away at all. Thank you.
Anybody else wanting to speak? All right, I'm going to close public comment and turn it back to the council. Joel.
Well, I had a couple things. First off, thank you, Bruce, for what you're doing. You do a good job. Karen Hoskins and Ray Millette, when they were alive, they served that population, and their offices have closed. And so now there's a lack of primary providers because nobody has filled the gap. They probably had 4,000 patients between the two of them. Karen would give out clothes at her medical office. They had a patient home. They helped people. They were nurse practitioners. They weren't MDs. And they did a fine job. I want to regress a little bit. In Europe, all the places that were parks belonged to the nobles. And that's where the castles are. And the other people didn't have access to them. There's not public beaches. There's not Yellowstones. There's not Crater Lakes. There's not Riverside Park. The nobles didn't immigrate to America for the most part. The peasants did.
Joel, I hope you're going somewhere with this.
Yeah, give me some grief here. They created what they called public land. Public land belongs to everyone, not just a certain segment of society. It doesn't belong to the rich, it doesn't belong to the poor, it belongs to everyone. So when I administered public land, I administered about 1 million acres of it at a time, and we had nonprofits that wanted to do something. We gave them a permit that gave them the right to do that. A permit to legitimize the effort that you're doing, Bruce. Non-permitted activities, I can think of a lot of them, and a lot of them are illegal. You got sex trafficking, you got drugs, and so let me give you some examples. Corvallis has a thing where they permit
nonprofits to do this. It's a legitimate activity. Now, what I see happening here is advocates for the homeless say, we don't want to have a legitimate activity. I added the legitimate activity. And then I see people that want people out of the park. We want them to have a legitimate activity, a permit. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane in my mind the way that this community is arguing about it, and I guess it's because we're all adrenalized. Let me give you an example of 2 permits that, well, there's many more. There was disadvantaged youth, physically and mentally handicapped. They were working with a snowmobile club. They wanted exclusive use. Brian, I'll stand up too. They wanted exclusive use of the snowmobile parks, and the public would be excluded from public lands. We gave them a permit that legitimatized that effort to do that. Why is this? I don't care if it's free. You know, and I think Corvallis's permit is free. And as we look at what our parks are and our public lands, we need to find a different solution. And I'm committed to doing that, and I've exchanged several different ideas. The young man here that was addicted, he that got out of there, it's a free country, he can go wherever he wants. He had a great place that I think would work really well, plus accomplish some other objectives for us here in the community, and that's Spalding Park. So anyway, I want our community to think and not just react, and not to stereotype each other. And if we have a permit that legitimatizes some activities, it's not a bad thing. And it would allow things to continue.
Hang on, the city attorney would like to make a comment, and then I have Vanessa, and then Brian, and then Valerie.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify at the beginning, right before this agenda item, I told the mayor, I said, I don't think we should have a public hearing on this, and it's because the way the veto works, the charter says you have a revote on it. So it's got nothing to do with my view of the substance of the underlying issue. And I know some of you are probably thinking maybe the mayor wanted to avoid public comment because she's the one who did the veto. I can assure you that's not it. That's why it was kind of messy, because I told her all of a sudden right before it. So I just wanted to make that clear. So that confusion, you can blame me for it. She wasn't trying to avoid public comment. I can promise you that. Thanks.
Vanessa.
The whole conversation has kind of gone awry, so I would like to help bring us back to center here. The ordinance it's a request to regulate what case law has defined as First Amendment protected actions. The beauty of our Constitution, specifically the First Amendment, is that if you are within the law of the land, you have the right to exercise that. If it's the freedom of religion, if it's the freedom of speech, it does not matter what I think of your speech, what I think of your religion, you have the freedom to exercise it. And that's what these actions are under this ordinance. They are by case law defined as First Amendment actions. And the ordinance itself is asking us to regulate those First Amendment actions, which I would agree is bureaucratic and unnecessary. All of the issues that we've heard this evening from the public, littering, fighting, delivering, distributing, possessing, paraphernalia and drugs, those are all illegal activities that are currently being enforced by our police department. This ordinance does nothing to curb that behavior. This is a regulation of a First Amendment action. For example, passing out food. So I don't think that this ordinance would take any action on those concerns. And again, community members that are in the parks, if you see something, say something. I do support the mayor's veto. Thank you.
Brian, then Valerie, then Dwayne.
Thank you. There's been members of the audience that repeatedly went against the rules during public comment, and you know who you are, and it's very disrespectful because other people were quiet for you when you spoke. So when other people are speaking, please be quiet so they can have their 3 minutes and they can say what they want to say. I would appreciate that, and I think everyone else would as well. Second thing is regarding the language of a conflict of interest, I would recommend that you ask a friend what that definition actually means, because it is being misconstrued. A conflict of interest in this context means that an individual or their family has to receive direct financial benefit from whatever is happening. The mayor is unpaid board member, and so by the letter of the conflict of interest, that is not what is happening. So just so you don't sound ignorant and keep bringing it up again and again, that's not what's happening here. Third, this ordinance effectively does nothing except create another layer of bureaucracy for nonprofits. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't improve the situation in the parks. It doesn't do anything. And the fact that we've spent this much time on it, not just tonight, but in previous meetings, it's a total waste of time. We should be spending time trying to figure out a location that is not the parks, whether it's a campground, whether it's a shelter, whatever that looks like. We're doing these other ridiculous things that, I don't know, maybe for some reason makes some counselors feel better thinking we're doing something, but this does nothing. All this stuff is already on the books. So this is a total waste of time, and I hope that we can just move on quickly. Thank you.
Valerie, then Dwayne.
Well, I'm just going to say that I would think we all know that it's the housing crisis that has us where we are, but the reality of it is it's the city, we do not get enough in taxes to go out and build housing. That's just not going to happen. The money that we pay to the state, some of that could come back down, and that's where the majority of cities are getting their money is through the state funding. So if the state wants to give us money, and we have written and asked for money, and we will continue to write and ask for money, we will continue to do what we can. When they give us money, I'm going to be the first person standing on line doing anything I can to get that money in so we can solve the housing crisis or get the money to do a shelter. I know, Roseburg's got one. They got over $3 million from the state. I know Medford has gotten $12 million from the state. We got $1 million. And so what can you do? And under the circumstances, we decided to give it to On Track to house houseless people who were looking. So that's where we did it. But it all comes down to the money. And I understand that, yes, we have passed ordinances, so about drugs and needles and all those sorts of things. I was more disappointed with the veto from the mayor because I hadn't heard these things from the mayor before. In all the times that we talked about it, I never heard what she wanted, what her thoughts were. And I had thought that when we first got this in January or what came first, it was ridiculous. They were asking for $1 million insurance. They were asking for these incredible fees. And so our lawyer at the time, Augustus, got together with the people in the parks and said, well, what is reasonable? What can we do to satisfy both sides? Because that's what we see here tonight. We see people who want our parks to be used as parks, and we see people who want to do humanitarian, and both of them, I understand where they're coming from, both of them. And so I thought we kind of reached a compromise, because we came up with $25 permit for 4 months, and when you renewed it, you didn't have to pay anything. You could go 5 years for $25 as long as you were following what you had said that you would do, where you were going to show up and that sort of thing. So I just kind of felt it was a compromise to say, I can tell you here, I looked up special events because that was one of the things that Sarah said. We have the special event, and it says it's any organized group activity that occurs upon public property will affect the ordinary use of public property, public streets, rights of way, sidewalks, and may require the city to incur costs and service. An activity will be considered to affect the ordinary use of a public property, public streets, rights of way, if it will generate impacts greater than the impacts generated from the normal and customary use of such property. And to me, that's what we're seeing happening in our parks, is there's increased activity. So it is legitimate. But there's nothing in our code that deals specifically with this incident because it's never been brought forth before. 10 years ago, we didn't have this problem. We have this problem now. So it's not something that's on the books. So my thought was, well, we'll get something on the books. We'll do a compromise and we'll have so that we know who's on the park. We know they're there for a limited amount of time. So the people who live by the parks or people who want to use the parks get an idea of when they're there and what the purpose of they're there for, and understand that, and we'll go down at a different time and say, okay, that's when they're doing that. We'll let that happen, but they have that amount of time to do it. That's when they're going to do it. And any other thing we do in the park, you have to have a permit for a block party. So, I mean, it's just like, or if you want to rent something, anything, you get a permit. So to me, it's like, we are just simply saying, yes, we want to know. And we also know that if you're going to get money from the state, you have to have a lot of statistics. And you've got to be able to say, we're helping them, and this is what we're doing in our parks right now. We need the money because we don't want it in our parks. We need that navigation center, and thank you for working to get that. I support it. I'll support it financially, whatever, because that's what I want too. But it takes a lot of money, as you see and as you know, to make that happen and be sustainable. I mean, Ashland just shut down their warming center. It's not sustainable. And we don't have the money to make something sustainable. And that's what we're all looking for. So to me, this was just a way of getting there and having that compromise. So those people knew when it was happening in the parks, okay, it's necessary, we know that. But at the same time, it's happening because people down there need that. So to me, it was a compromise. And that's why I was disappointed, because I didn't have any idea that Sarah was against it until I read it on a veto. And then it was like, oh, where do we go from here? I'm not really sure where I go from here, but I believe in reading that special event, knowing that we don't have any follow-up for what do we do in this situation. And that's what government is for, is when you have a new situation that comes up, you address it. And that's why I thought this would be addressing that. And that's why I voted in favor of it. Not because I don't want them in the parks. I want them in the parks, but I want them in the parks in a way that is managed and that we all understand, because until we can get something else. And that, I think, is the goal of all of us.
Dwayne and then Rick.
I think Rob's on here too, so. I had like 2 pages to say, honestly, and I don't want to repeat all of it. A lot of people said a lot of good things I don't agree with on, something that I disagree on. I think Valerie did a really good job here speaking about some things, but I do want to confirm that not every homeless person is a drug addicted person. I really wanted people to understand that. I do agree. I don't see the guy down with the walker, probably. Not saying everybody that's handicapped is not a drug dealer, because I was down in Tustin yesterday and there was some drug going on, and I made a phone call, so hopefully that'll be taken care of. They're doing drugs right in front of me. I was walking right by them, and it's a little disturbing to see drugs going on right in front of you. But I do know that not every person is a drug addict in the park. I've spent a lot of time in the park. I've been away for a while. So I went there yesterday, it was nice and sunny, and yes, there is drugs going on in the park in Tustin. I'm really appreciative of Mr. Parker. He rented to the Mint. I've known Mr. Parker for 40-some years, actually. I grew up just down the street from him, and I don't know if we're friends still, but I've known him for 40 years. I grew up with this kid, and if Mint needs $25, I'm willing to give him $25 for their fee. You can use it as long as you want. I will donate $25 if we ever get past this thing. So, but there's nothing restraining any individual, even with this ordinance, for going down individually and feeding the homeless. It's only talking about large groups. Large groups. If any one of you want to go down there individually and hand down something, you have every right, and no one in this room could stop you. Not law enforcement, not nobody. You're allowed to feed the homeless. Either I agree or disagree what you're doing, you're allowed to feed them. Shoot, we have people feeding the ducks and stuff down there, and it says don't feed the ducks, but you're probably not getting arrested. We have a cat problem. People are feeding the cats. So No one's going to arrest you for feeding somebody down the park or hand them a jacket or whatever you want to do, unless you're giving them needles or propane tanks. And I'm hoping that we're taking care of that stuff. So, you know, I see some problems with this ordinance. I see that there could be a slight adjustment, and I'm hoping maybe we could deal with that tonight here to make it fair for everybody's happy. Because I want to make everybody happy, which is really hard being a city councilor. Trust me, making everybody happy is I don't know how you do that. There's always someone upset in this compromise here. Everybody thinks they have more rights than another person. Well, I don't know about that. We all have rights, and we all have things we like and dislike, and it's just tough. And, you know, I did call the chief of police after the veto, and I talked to him. I said, were you ever talked to about a burden from the mayor? And he told me I've never been spoken to about a burden. So I was really, you know, and the attorney spent a lot of time coming together with the nonprofits putting this up. And that's a lot of time that we had to pay as citizens, you know, as citizens, taxpayers, for him to come up with this ordinance. And if we weren't going to do this, because this started last summer, we should have told him right away so we wouldn't have to waste his time. But I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot you could say, and we could be here all night.
Rick and then Rob.
I also agree with what Valerie has said, and one thing I think compromise is important. What's out there right now, or what's been out there, is it perfect? No, there's probably nothing so perfect. Am I amenable to changes and modifications? Yes, I'm willing to listen. I also think statistics can be a real advantage, especially when we're looking for grants and things like that. So I would like to see this move forward tonight. Thank you.
Rob.
Yeah, first I'd just like to make a suggestion, I guess, to Mark or the mayor or the city manager. In the future, in the agenda, we might have marked this tonight saying something along the lines of public comment was received on March 6th and is now closed. And it would have been clear that the people might not have had the expectation they were going to come and talk tonight, rather than springing it on the last minute, which really wasn't, we made the right decision letting people talk. I have to, once again, I have to pretty much agree with what everyone has to say tonight because it's all valid. And I want to thank, for sure, Dr. Murray and Cassie Leach. There's no doubt that you guys, for sure, are definitely not getting rich helping the homeless, regardless of what innuendo has been thrown in that way. Somebody may be, but I know that you're not. Thank you very much for what you do. You know, also, one thing in particular that Valerie and I think, Valerie actually was very clear on. I actually was pretty blindsided by the veto here also for the reason that it didn't happen in real time. No discussion in real time did the mayor let us know what she felt, to what degree. It didn't, her feelings on it didn't necessarily enter into our discussions. It could have potentially changed some votes. And the style of this particular veto definitely rubbed me the wrong way. The fact that no discussion happened in real time. And it really came out of left field. And that part of it doesn't feel really right to me. You know. So the reason that, but getting back, rather than trying to solve global issues tonight, the reason that I voted against this was really clear, and I stated very clearly why I voted against it. And while Vanessa makes some really good points about First Amendment rights, that wasn't the underlying theme of why I voted against it. The fact that the ultimate authority on this issue, if a humanitarian, used as a really good word, humanitarian person in the park, provider had a problem or a confusing situation and had a problem, a hearings officer could potentially be involved. The fact that a hearings officer would have been the final authority on that, to me, absolutely rubbed me the wrong way. A hearings officer who's not a city employee, a hearings officer that's appointed essentially by a city attorney, because we as counselors didn't interview them. We don't know their past history. We don't know their biases. We don't know where they are in anything. So the fact that hearings officer to have ultimate authority absolutely rubs me the wrong way. And I'll explain, just a little detail. I don't want to bore people, but, when we look at whether it's the Ninth Circuit, different lawyers, basically the judges, had different opinions. When we look at the Supreme Court, it's really unlikely that this decision about the homeless is going to be 9-0 in either direction. So lawyers have different opinions. And the hearings officer would just be a lawyer with an opinion. And again, I cannot have that person be the final authority. Now we've got, we had a situation once, and there's a person in this room who was at the meeting, but we had a situation once where something went to Luba and came back to Grants Pass. The person spent $16,000 or $18,000 to take it to Luba and went back to Grants Pass in front of the council. And before that meeting started, the person who was the city attorney at that time gave everyone in the room an admonition, told them exactly what they could talk about, couldn't talk about. Everyone was very upset, much like tonight. I got up and spoke, and I said, because that wasn't my understanding of the law, I'm not a lawyer, but I disagreed with the city attorney. A moment after that, the person who was on the council, who was our former city attorney, essentially completely agreed with me and told the room that they could comment in any way, shape, or form that they wanted, and that the council wanted to hear all of their opinions. So we had two attorneys 15 feet away from each other on the same night on the same issue. Both of them had been Grants Pass city attorneys, and they had diametrically opposed opinions. And that's a fact. It's not an opinion. That's not my guessing. That happened. So lawyers have different opinions from each other. I'm not going to personally ever vote to give a hearings officer final say on basically on an issue that could affect someone's First Amendment rights, and on an issue that could affect large groups of people, meaning Mint and others who are doing humanitarian work. I look at large groups of people that way and their First Amendment rights as something that needs to be a little bit more, needs to have more oversight than just one hearings officer. Now, there are people, I know Joel and I have spoken privately, there are people who say, well, they can appeal to, a court. Well, that's if they're willing and able to spend $200 or $300 an hour for a lawyer, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do that. And to me, that is not really one of the hats the council wears is to make sure that things are fair and things are reasonable, and that the average citizen actually, can get their opinions heard. And the way it's set up now, with the hearings officer being final, that doesn't work for me at all. And I've said it twice. The majority of the council didn't agree with that. They were okay with the hearings officer. I voted no. I'm going to maintain my no vote tonight for the same reason, because nothing has changed. If this were to come back with a hearings officer being an authority, gathering evidence, making a decision, but that decision being able to appeal to the council before someone had to spend big money to go to court, I would probably vote yes on that. Because I think that overall I would agree with a lot of the reasons that this is a reasonable move at this time. But I'm not going to give up final authority to a hearings officer who, again, is a lawyer who has an opinion that can be way different than other lawyers' opinions, as we've seen.
Brian, then Joel.
We got to get this show on the road, so just to keep things moving, I'm going to make the motion so we can move on. So I move to override the veto to resolution number 24-588, adopting Municipal Code Chapter 5.88, regulation of humanitarian service events on publicly owned property.
Is there a second? Seconded by Valerie. Discussion on the motion? Joel?
Rob and I disagreed on that, but I'm willing to, I don't call it compromise, come to a consensus, and where the council would be the deciding official. Both it's all kind of hypothetical at this point in time. Both of them can be abused. Both of them can come to bad decisions, and both of them can work. So, Rob, I'm willing to support you on that.
Further discussion? All right, so the motion was to override the veto, so a yes means to override the veto. And Brian, you made the motion, how do you vote?
No.
Vanessa?
No.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion fails 6-3, or 5-3. Joel, you have your,
So the veto is not overridden, correct?
the motion passed.
Yeah, the motion passed. So I
Well,
would,
the motion failed because it was 5-3 and it
Yeah,
requires a
right,
6. Okay.
so I would make a motion that we do the code with the change that Rob suggested, and that we have the council being the final review.
We can't do that tonight.
My God, we just said you would do that.
Well, you can. What, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion. Can you repeat what the motion was?
I make the motion to approve the ordinance with the added change that the council would have the final review of any appeal.
So I think what you're really trying to do is make a motion to direct staff to bring back an ordinance with that change. You can do that, but I would prefer that, I mean, things are rarely ever that simple. And it's great if it's, just one change, we run it back. I think it's probably more prudent if council has a bit of a discussion about, hey, how can we reach a consensus on maybe add one change or more? So you could do that, but I feel like we're trying to legislate, make new legislation at the end here of a pretty lengthy discussion.
We have a consensus, though.
Okay, so Joel made a motion. Are you directing staff to come back with an amended proposal?
Well, actually, Mark, I know you haven't been involved with this all the way along. Have you looked at the previous sessions where we discussed this?
No.
Okay. Because it has been fairly well vetted.
We had a workshop,
Yeah, and so I'm not sure what more staff could do.
Well, I mean, I suppose if you have a consensus and the proposed changes are crystal clear, then maybe that could work.
Yeah. Well, I'll stick with my motion, and I'll trust the consensus of my peers, and how it turns out is how it turns out. So let me clarify my motion. I make the motion to approve the code as submitted with one change. The change would be where the council would be the final reviewing officer of any appeal.
So
you can't make a motion to approve something that's not before us right now. Well, you can make a motion to direct staff to bring back an ordinance with some changes.
do you see that the agenda item was to override the veto, not to
Right.
approve the ordinance? So what you need to do is direct staff to make an amendment, and then we would come back at a subsequent meeting to review the amended ordinance and vote on it again.
Okay, I'll make that motion, and with the goal to legitimatize the use of our parks by a special use permit for essentially what is a primary care office, along with wraparound services.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Dwayne. So the direction, the motion is to direct staff to revise the ordinance and bring it back with a amendment to have the appeal go to the council rather than a hearings officer. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Joel?
the way it reads now, it says hearings officer's ruling is final. It would say instead, hearings officer ruling could be appealed to the council.
Okay, so you would add a step of the council after the hearings officer. Okay, is that the motion that you're wanting to make, Joel?
Yes.
and seconded by Dwayne. Okay, is there any discussion on that? Brian?
Yeah, if we put as much time into this ordinance or into finding an actual solution as we do into this ordinance, we'd be making a lot more progress. So I guess by all means, let's keep wasting time on this thing that's not going to do anything.
Vanessa?
We also heard from several service providers this evening that this is onerous and unnecessary, so I'm going to side with them as well.
All right, and in the interest of getting my opinions out there, I will go ahead and make comment on that, it would be my intent to veto that ordinance as well, because I don't feel that we need to legitimize the efforts of the service providers in our parks. I believe we absolutely need to take back our parks, which should be safe spaces for children and families to recreate, and that this humanitarian services ordinance does not do that. Drugs and drug paraphernalia, littering, combustible propane, and butane tanks are already illegal in our parks. This ordinance does not hold the homeless people, the drug users, the litter bugs accountable. What it does is seek to make the humanitarian service groups somehow accountable or legitimize their efforts that they don't need, that they're not asking for. I believe that there are First Amendment considerations, that you don't have similar laws in place for other groups. You're not seeking to legitimize the Park Watch group. You're not seeking to legitimize birthday groups or other organizations that might meet in the parks. And I believe that this could open us up to potential lawsuits. I believe that our police department is already strapped trying to enforce the laws that we have in place. Right now, with current codes, I believe that we have drug use and littering happening in our parks every day, and I want our police department focusing on that rather than whether or not a humanitarian service group has a permit. This creates red tape, and I believe that it just is intended to create a speed bump for the organizations that we have solicited to help with this situation, because we know that the city cannot do it alone. If you want people to move out of the parks, establish a place for them to go. Support the efforts of those who support getting them back on their feet and in stable housing. Support the police department so they can patrol the parks and enforce the laws that we already have. But do not establish more toothless bureaucratic policies that fool you into feeling you've accomplished something when in fact you have done absolutely nothing. And with that, are you ready to vote? All right, Joel, you made the motion to ask staff to amend the ordinance and bring it back to us. How do you vote?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Vanessa?
No.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock.
Is there a second? That was Valerie at the second. All in favor of extending the meeting past 9, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was a 7-1 vote on extending the meeting. Next up on the agenda, we have a resolution that would authorize the city manager to execute some change orders for Timber Mountain construction.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Wade Elliott. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director, and tonight I'm before you to discuss some change orders to a recent contract that we finished up for the Safe Routes to School Lincoln Road project. So this resolution would authorize change orders 1 through 7 and the final payment to Timber Mountain Construction for the Lincoln Elementary School project. The contract for construction of the Lincoln Road, or Lincoln Elementary Safe Routes to School project was awarded to Timber Mountain Construction on June 7th. The project is funded using approximately $1.6 million of grant funding from the state Safe Routes to School grant program. and $350,000 of local transportation resources. The project is split into phases, and phase 1 was built during the summer break of the 2023 summer. Additional local transportation funding will be added in future budget cycles to finish funding phase 1 as well as phase 2, which is 100% designed and ready to go. Construction was completed on time with minimal disruptions to school operations. There was 2 raised pedestrian crossings installed for safety, and by all accounts, they're working really well. And sidewalk infill was completed on 10th Street and as well as on Churchill. And all of the ADA ramps in that area were upgraded. And some repaving was done to extend the useful life of the pavement and the roadways. During construction, change orders are a fairly common occurrence, and they typically result from 3 different factors. One would be a change in the existing conditions, another would be the change in scope authorized by the city, or the third one would be unforeseen conflicts. And our policy on this is that the city manager can authorize change orders if they're less than $50,000 in aggregate, or 15% of the original contract price, whichever is higher. Typically, the costs are higher and the 15% governs. So combined on this project, change orders 1 through 7 exceeded the 15% threshold and therefore do require council approval. I think we came in at 16.2%. We almost made it. So I'm going to run through the change orders real quick. We can, if you want, just raise a hand and we can discuss them or hold it till the end, but I'll go pretty quickly. So change order number 1, we found that when we were realigning the roadway from approximately Pepperwood up to Savage Street, the existing base and asphalt was in an advanced stage of deterioration and there wasn't much base. So while we were in there, we executed a change order with Timber Mountain to repave that whole area. Additionally, we realigned it a little bit, and the crown of the street was going to be moved over to the middle of one of the travel lanes, which was going to be it was going to feel funny when you were driving on it. Instead of having that slight right lane, you would have been pulled across the street. So that one totaled a little bit over $100,000, and it repaved quite a bit. I got a few pictures of that. It looks really nice now. Looks like a brand new road, and it was going to be kind of patched before, but so now it's a new road. And there's a little further back look at one of the raised intersections in the paving associated with it. Change order number 2 was to grind and repave the intersection at 10th and Cedar. The pavement was in decent condition there, but the ADA ramp considerations dictated that we needed to repave the middle of that street, of that intersection. So there's a lot of ADA issues. I think you guys have all heard that the ramps are pretty hard to do, right? They can only be 8.33%. Going up the ramp, you can only have a 2% cross slope, and anything outside of those tolerances, you have to reject it. Well, the same holds true for the asphalt. You can only have 5% coming out of the ramp into the intersection. And when we actually got in there, we found out that we couldn't meet that 5%, and we had to repave the intersection and change the grades a little bit. That one came out to a little bit over $50,000. And then change order number 3 was to reinstall the sewer laterals along Churchill Street. Part of the project was to install a water line along Churchill because we skinnied up the roadway section. The water line would have ended up being underneath the new curb and gutter and sidewalk and would have been hard to repair and replace in the future. So we moved the new water line. We did not pothole the existing sewer laterals on the north side of Churchill, and when we actually put the water line in, we found that they were too close to the new water line. And there are actual state regulations that dictate how much vertical clearance and separation you have, because you wouldn't want the water and sewer to maybe be linking and commingling. So we had to lower all of those, and if you've ever had a sewer lateral replaced, they're pretty expensive, and there's quite a few of them. So that ended up being $50,000. And then change order 4, we had to lower the water line to miss a large GPID culvert. It was a little bit higher on the plans than it turned out to be in the actual field, so they had to dig a little further, deflect the pipe. Change order number 5 was to do a little bit of repaving around some of the ramps at the corners of 10th, Maple and Wharton and Madrone Streets with 10th Street. And that was for the same 5% ADA issue that we had before, but there were smaller sections. So that one was only $3,400. Change order 6 was required to do some additional work on an ADA ramp at the corner of 10th and Savage. Our plans missed an inlet there, and we had to do some extra concrete work. That one was almost $4,000. And the final change order was to reconnect all the roof drains on the north side of Churchill, which we also thought were gonna match in pretty well. We kind of missed that one on the plans. But when we realigned the curb and gutter section, we had to put some new roof drains in to tie it into the curb. Some of those included small catch basins to get across the driveways. And that was it. So at the end of the project, when we did all the bid item balancing, we came in $15,000 under what the contract price was for just the bid items. But then when you compiled all of those change orders, it was an additional cost of $226,656.39, and that equated to 16.2% of the contract price. So there are sufficient funds within the transportation fund to cover the cost of this change order. The work has been completed to date. We are in the punch list phase, and the contractor is awaiting final payment. And so call to action is tonight, but of course it's at council direction, and there's some options for the potential motion below there. And I'd love to take any questions you have.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Rick?
Thank you, Wade. So when you say there's sufficient funds there, when you put the original project together, you also have a percentage that's in the overage? Is that why we have additional funds?
Yeah, that's part of it. We could go into a pretty good long discussion on all of it. But basically we do have contingencies built into the project that the overall project that you see in the capitals will cover the design, the scoping, the design, any investigative work we have, and then there's a little bit of contingency buffer in there to cover that. A fail-safe to that is that the TR000 project has some additional funds in there that can be rerouted if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Nope. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. Was there anyone from the public who wanted to speak on this issue?
Victoria Marshall, I live in the city. I actually live right where this is happening. I spoke on this at a council meeting, you probably don't remember, but I spoke about trust. And I said there is a contract that is repaving streets where streets already had sidewalks, they already had ramps, it was already there, it was just getting redone, it was a waste of money, and the public sees this. They see it. And now I'm so glad I stayed, because here's all these change orders that I took a picture of it, but it was I'm flabbergasted at how much more money this is costing, and it was so expensive to begin with. So this could be used for law enforcement, and this could be used for other issues that we talked about. Well, with budget, whatever. I'm talking about trust.
I know.
I'm talking about trust. We're always told as the public, well, we can't do that because the law says this, and we are the government. The people back here are the government. The people up here are the people who serve the government. So please remember and keep that in mind. And we even got something in the mail. I mean, that will give us financial benefit from this project. To redo a sidewalk where there's already a sidewalk and already a ramp for this Safe Schools project. And I am just appalled that Churchill Street, we didn't realize there was some water thing there. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back there and listen to this. My mind is reeling. I can't believe that this was so poorly mismanaged. So I talked about it before when I was up here talking about trust. We need to build trust with our public. This isn't helping. And I can assure you that I'm going to research this in great detail because this is not acceptable. So thank you for what you do. Please make sure you get that ordinance that you just voted take back to those people to write, make sure you pass it. It's got to happen. Our parks are not safe, and nonprofits are taking advantage of it. Thank you.
Was there anyone else who wanted to speak on this issue? All right, please step forward and state your name.
Judy Aarons, I shop in Grants Pass. I'm a ditto. It's laughable to me. I'm seeing all these, this presentation, and we overextended here 26,000, we overextended here 59,000, we overextended here stuff. My God, can you imagine you doing that on your family budget? I mean, really, seriously, that's why it's laughable. That's why it's scary laughable, that you have a budget here, or you estimate. How could you be so far off that you're going to be charging the taxpayer over $226,000 for something that it was like an oops. I mean, that's a big oops to be that far off. Somebody just didn't get their figures right. When you go out to get all these contractors, how can they come back? Because they know city councils, I guess. They'll know that, well, we'll give you an estimate of this amount, but hey, if we're over 40,000, the taxpayer, the people back here, the ones that were here that go to bed, they'll pay for it. No, don't think that way. Be ashamed, apologize. I am sorry that we're $226,000 over budget. Shame on us, referring to you guys. Shame on us for doing that. Because you'd never do it in your home budget, and your kids will say, we can't go to Disneyland because we didn't budget right. We couldn't go to Knott's Berry Farm because we didn't budget right. But since it's just a taxpayer, oh well. It's just one of those, oh well. Apologize for it. That's a lot of money to be over budgeted, that you over budgeted for the city.
Ma'am, please direct your comments to the council and not to the staff. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak? All right, I'm closing public comment and turning it back to council for discussion. Valerie.
Well, I'm going to take the lead on this only because I was on board. I was the one that went out for the $1.5 million that we got from the state of Oregon to pay for this project. I was the one who went out to the schools and had the teachers and the students and everybody get involved, say that we need routes for school where we have sidewalks and where we have ramps and we have those things. And that's the sort of thing that the state is paying for. So when we want to get our money back from the state, that's an example of what we do. As we go up and we lobby and we do all these things, it takes hours. I can tell you that Wade and myself and 2 other volunteers went through to every school in the district. And we went and interviewed kids, we went through teachers, we did surveys. I mean, there's a lot of work that went behind getting this. That was back in 2015 is when we applied. I think we got it in 2016, 2017, and then the pandemic hit, then the cost of everything went up. The state of Oregon is sued because we'd have enough disabled ramps throughout the state of Oregon. So the state of Oregon was sued for millions of dollars, and so now we have to put in ramps at every intersection, and they are so hard to put in that they have to be to a certain standard. What is it, 5%? It can't be more than that, and sometimes they have to take them out 2 or 3 times to make sure they fit the standard. I will tell you, on the water lines and the sewer lines, you do not want your sewer line and your water main line coexisting in a range. So there are some extremely harsh standards that have to be met. And a lot of this, once again, wasn't anything that we voted for, but it came down from the state. And those are the regulations that we have to do the streets. So I agree. I'm also so disappointed that that's the sort of thing that we have to do. But I also have worked enough with ODOT and transportation to recognize the crisis that our whole state is in because of the costs of everything have gone skyrocketed. This lawsuit that came from the state that says we have to put in ramps at every corner and they have to be at a 5% grade is outrageous, but we don't have a choice. So it's unfortunate, and I wish I could get up sometimes on a rooftop and let people know some of these regulations that have to be done that we don't necessarily want to do, and we didn't have to do 15 years ago, but we do have to do now. And it's unfortunate, but I will say this is one thing that a lot of work went in to get money from the state so that we could have safe routes around our schools. And this was the grant we had. We've gone in for more. I don't know if we've gotten any more or we haven't gotten any more. That was the only school we've gotten, but hopefully we will. But knowing now what it costs, we know that next time around, we're going to have to get a lot more or we won't do them. So that's just kind of a learning experience.
Joel and then Dwayne.
So Wade, I just had a quick question for you. So things were different than what our initial planning said. The grade, the needs, and then the plan changed as we did more accurate measurements. In some cases, I suppose, as we dug up the holes, we found things at different depths than what the previous plans had said. Some of those things look like they couldn't be anticipated. There was others that looked like they could have been.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's
And
it.
what steps have we taken so that those anticipated changes could be caught in the initial design, or does that make the initial design so expensive?
I was gonna say, that's kind of the balancing act that we do. So, I mean, if we would have hired a geotechnical engineer and we would have gone out and punched a bunch of holes in the roads and analyzed it, we likely would have spent $50,000 to $100,000 to figure out that, yeah, we need to replace this section of road. At which point you would have added it into the bid, and the $100,000 for change order one, for example, you would have paid for anyways. The contract price would have been $100,000 more. Yeah, because we would have decided we needed it at that point, and everybody would have felt okay about it at that point. But catching it, yeah, exactly, catching it after the fact, it doesn't look good. But we could have spent more money up front to avoid it, sure. Now, as for some of the other things, like not catching the roof drains, that's on us. That's on my staff to review those plans better, and me. We should have anticipated that one.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty.
Dwayne.
It's good. I'll make it quick. Joel kind of stole some of my thunder, sorry. Yeah, it's disappointing. You know, I just laid out millions and millions of dollars of wasteful spending in the state, and here we are, it's $250,000 of wasteful spending. And not to say that we might not have spent it in the long run, but it's just, I hate to lecture, we should have done, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of things we could have done with $250,000 and spend it other places. And it's just disappointing that we have to be embarrassed to the city, to the constituents in the city, that we screwed up. You know, not me personally, but we screwed up as a city, and I'm, you know, I am embarrassed because that is a lot of money, and we're always talking about money here, and people trust us with their money, and it's just, it's sad that this much money is overblown on a budget, and it happens, seems like it's not just a new thing. We've done this so many different times. It adds up on projects, and after a while, we're 100 million, 200 million, and we're going to get there if we don't stop making better decisions on all our projects. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Is there a motion? Valerie?
Well, sadly, since they've already been done and the mistakes have been made, and you're right, it's sad, but I know that Timber Mountain is expecting to be paid. So I'm going to move to adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change orders 1 through 7 with Timber Mountain Construction to complete project TR6410.
Seconded by Vanessa. Discussion on the motion. DJ and then Joel.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to say, you know, in the real world, these things happen. Construction overruns and oversights, they just happen. There's no room to admonish anybody here. I'm thankful that we found these issues and that we can pay for them. So, looking forward to this project being complete and the contract paid and moving.
Joel?
Well, I just wanted to agree with DJ and compliment Wade that he did have a contingency fund to cover it. and the funding's there, and it's not like we're in the middle of a project and we're out of funds. So, thank you.
Further discussion? All right, Valerie, you made the motion to execute the change order, and how do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, next up is appointment to the Tourism Advisory Committee. We have one opening on the committee, and 5 candidates have applied in alphabetical order. They are Dylan Goodwin, Terry Hopkins, Constance Pelea, Dave Siddon, and Susan Slocum. And the committee has recommended Terry Hopkins, reappointing Terry Hopkins, who they say is experienced and brings knowledge to the committee and has been the vice chair for the past 2 years. And the council has already submitted your sheets, I see, and so we have 7 nods in support of reappointing Terry Hopkins. So I will take a motion. Yeah, DJ sent me a text. Valerie.
I move to reappoint Terry Hopkins to the Tourism Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Vanessa. And any discussion on that motion? No? Okay, so Valerie made the motion to reappoint Terry Hopkins to the committee. How do you vote?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Next up, we have public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item on the agenda tonight. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. At the conclusion of public comment, council will have an opportunity to respond. The meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government-provided service or current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. We have Mark Seligman first, and then Judy Ahrens.
Mark Seligman, Selma, Oregon. A point of order. You can refer to anybody by name? Is that a rule?
Yeah, you're supposed to address the council as a
Okay,
body, not
fine.
to individuals.
Well, one counselor earlier had said, when we're talking about property annexation, well, people have a right to develop their own property. I agree with that. Well, I'd ask this same counselor this question. Do people also have a right not to want to be annexed into the city? You can't have one without the other. Okay. Josephine County, including Grants Pass, ranks just above the poverty line. We cannot ask residents, county or city, to pay any more additional taxes. Instead, we should seek state funding. We cannot have state legislatures vote no on housing to Grants Pass. We cannot have state legislators restrict water line extensions in Grants Pass. We cannot have state legislators vote no on homeless solutions like funding. Ditto on library
Is this pertinent to the
funds.
city, or are we talking about the state legislature here?
I'm talking about Grants Pass and homeless, and I'm talking about funding. I'm talking about the library. I'm talking about seniors in Grants Pass and low incomes struggling to find affordable housing. I'm speaking for those people who, we cannot have people for Grants Pass residents or any residents vote against health care. We can't have state legislatures vote no for children's family services in Grants Pass. We cannot have state legislatures vote no against workers in
not the
Grants.
state legislature.
This relates
I know that
to-
you're campaigning for public office.
I'm not
and
campaigning.
It's against the rules. You are.
No, I'm not.
You
I'm
are.
saying These are
And we're
important
done.
issues.
Thank you.
You're going to stop free speech?
We're done.
Maybe you should have been recalled.
Okay, Judy Ahrens.
Judy Ahrens, I shop in Grants Pass, Josephine County. Tonight, I brought you some Easter cupcakes, and I want to explain them a little bit to you, what they represent. And I'm going to start with the chocolate part. The chocolate part represents the sin and the darkness in the world and
Judy,
in
does this have to
communities.
do with the city council?
It sure does, ma'am. Sure does. And I hope we do have still freedom of speech under the First Amendment. And
I stated the rules were to speak about
yeah.
items for the city's
Okay.
jurisdiction, okay?
Fine, fine.
Thank you.
If we're going to limit our public speaking, fine. So I'm going to go back to the chocolate part of the cupcakes I'm giving you. And I know we did this evening a lot about the homeless and the parks and everything, but since I have an opportunity, I will bring it up again. I'm saddened that we have a situation in our city with the homeless and people representing things that, we feel sorry for them, we have empathy for them, but there's also a thing called responsibility. And under the chocolate part of this cupcake is a lot of times a lack of responsibility. People are homeless there because they choose not to be responsible, look for work, just like in front of the post office, a lady holding up a sign, she's been there, she gets $50 checks or money from people, yet down at Safeway, they said they have openings for people to work, and they choose not to work. So my point being, back with our parks that we can't use, the needles that are found in certain parks, community members working tirelessly because of programs and policies passed here that they can't be home with their family. So that's the dark part, and the things I could share generally speaking, but I'll be limited to just this unless we want to talk about things that are going on in families. So the chocolate part is really, like I say, we want to get rid of that. However, there's good news. There's good news. The strawberries, they represent the blood of Christ. So I don't know if any of you are looking forward to Palm Sunday and Easter in a week from here, but the strawberries represent Christ dying on the cross. The Cool Whip represents redemption, and because of the strawberries, because of Christ, we can be redeemed from our sins because we're all sinners and everything. So since I'm very limited, but along that line, what's going on in the community here at our council meeting and what I've been hearing for the last 3 hours. There's a good book by Mark Levin. It kind of pinpoints everything that's going on in this community, at this city council and around. It's called American Marxism. And it really would highlight things that are going on in a lot of communities, council meetings. It would be a great book for you to read because it would reveal things that are going on that this is where we're headed, unfortunately. Thank you very much. And I'm going to leave these here.
I know it's late, but I'm just going to say this real quick. The little movement we started about a year ago with 8 people has kind of gotten bigger. As you've probably seen the honking and everything else, it's going to get even bigger. I've invited every one of you city council members to come down to one of our meetings, just see what we're doing out there. That we're not out there vigilantes and stop that all the way across. 2 of you have, and I appreciate it. And when you come out, we're not out to hurt the homeless. We just want them to follow the rules. And I've said that many, many times. The ones that have been in the meetings, you've seen it. You saw the drug dealer. We actually had one of our group, he's got a heck of a following, and he was down at Riverside Park with his kids, which I thought was great. And the reason why he's there now, because there's no drug dealer there. They have all moved over to the other park. And you guys, if you come out and just spend an hour on a Sunday, from 1 to 2, every Sunday we have a meeting. We move it around a little bit because we found people cleaning the parks up before we got there. And we're going to go back to doing walks through the parks, not to embarrass anybody, but just to show you, the public, what is going on. Our videos are sometimes very graphic, but it's what we're seeing there. And I want you guys to come down and see it with us. Hold the sign with us. Save our parks. Drugs are not in the parks. And a lot of the homeless that walked by us on Riverside Park when we were down at the Caveman Bridge were actually drug-free. And they said, thank you Someone needs to do something about these drugs in the park. I'm living there in a hellhole, and I can't get out of it. That's all I got to say. Join us, please. We're all on the same page for safe town.
Good night.
Thank you. It looks like we've managed to clear the room. So Karen, do we have any emails to review?
There was one proposal for the city to purchase the historic U.S. Forest Service building.
Did anyone want to review public comment tonight? All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. These items are such routine nature without controversy that they may be approved with a single action. And Council President, would you please read the consent agenda?
Item A, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to task order 17 with RH2 Engineering, Inc. for Meadowwood Reservoir Construction Services. Item B, resolution amending the comprehensive fee schedule for adjustments. Item C, resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for fiscal year 2025 community-initiated project appropriations. Item D, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute agreements for water treatment plant chemicals, sodium hydrochloride. Item E, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly and quarterly financial reports for quarter ended September 2023. Item F, motion acknowledging the receipt of the monthly and quarterly financial reports for quarter ended December 2023. Item G, motion approving the minutes of the City Council meeting of March 6, 2024. Item H, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Committee on Public Art meeting of January 9, 2024. Item I, motion acknowledging the minutes Tourism Advisory Committee meeting of February 6, 2024. Item J, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Area Planning Commission meeting of February 14th, 2024. And item K, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Bikeways and Walkways Committee meeting of February 13th, 2024. And with that, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Seconded by Valerie. And we don't discuss the consent agenda, so, and we did have a start, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and hear that report and then we'll vote.
Go fast, he'll go fast.
Oh, we do, sorry about that.
I can understand how you skip over it. You know. Imagine that, you wanted to go home.
You're not hurting my feelings any one bit. I don't think at this time anybody is. Okay, so I'm going to go over the financial reports for quarter ending September 30th and December 31st of 2023. Both of these quarters are pretty close to actually being the exact same factors as what you're looking at, so this will actually go pretty fast. Subject and summary, I'm going to go over September and obviously December. Our relationship to council goals to provide cooperative shared leadership involving council, staff, and community. I want to say there are over 100 pages of these two reports. One of my staff's goals in this following year is to hopefully make these reports more legible and more ADA compliant. So hopefully you will see that in this packet as far as the change. Hopefully it's a lot easier to read as far as what you're looking at financially. So general information, in the first quarter, resources can be seasonal or are received after the quarter end. Property taxes are received in November and December, and so not in this quarter. However, we know that assessed values increase about 3.3% over the prior year. 1.85% is from new construction, and 1.45% is from existing property. The URA increased about 7.3%. From their frozen tax base, and we'll receive about $145,000 more than budgeted. And our interest revenue is doing very well this year. So general fund revenues, as you can see, we're a little bit lower than 2021. 2021 is a kind of a weird year in the sense that ballot measure 110 changed the revenues that we did get, so that's why there's a dip down in 2022. You're also looking at building actually was a lot better in 2021 as well. Property taxes. So in the first quarter, this is kind of a weird statistic to look at, but this is actually what your delinquents are for previous years. And so you actually want delinquents to be relatively low in the sense that people paid their property taxes in the previous year. Those are going to be delinquents and not necessarily the current tax roll in that current year, correct? So that's why these are kind of economic factors where you can kind of hopefully see trends. Here's building, as I kind of noted earlier, that 2021, we were definitely way higher than 2024, but you will see that in 2024, we do bounce back closer to 2023 levels in the second quarter. Our lodging tax, obviously the rate increased in 2022 from 9 to 12%, and that is the discrepancy there. We are trending downward as far as the revenues that we are collecting. You'll see that also in quarter two, so the trend is current. As of January 1, we are now going to be, where the ordinance was changed, we are going to be hitting incidentals that are also subject at the state level for the transient lodging tax. However, staff doesn't believe that that's going to be a relatively large swing in revenues. Water revenues through quarter one, we look at this for seasonality. Water rates or water revenues are based on consumption. And so what we're really looking for is if the rates are going up by CPI, that we should see a trend going up. Now in 2023 to 2022, you can see it's relatively flat. So that is some cause for concern. And so when me and Jason were looking at this last year, we kind of did the let's hold and see. So actually right now the trend is that we are in the right spot for these revenues. And other utilities such as sewer use the consumption as well as a measuring stick. So just kind of, I'm using water here as the example, but you can see other utilities kind of use a similar measuring stick. For expenditures, you can see some seasonal or annual payments for the entire year. So transfers can be seasonal based on operational and capital needs. Capital project funds are typically low due to the funds are pooled and appropriated but may not be spent in the current year. Our IT is high due to the annual payments that come in at the beginning of the year, and insurance is high due to the exact same thing for annual payments that are made at the beginning of the year. And everybody wants to know about the general fund. As you can see, the expenditures in the general fund through quarter one are higher than the previous years. That's kind of across the board. Public safety is seeing some vacancies, more so than the previous year, but we filled other vacancies in other departments such as park superintendent, economic development. So we're just seeing a trend that we have more stable staffing throughout the general fund, and ergo, the costs of all those people have risen over the years. And this is public safety. So again, you can kind of see that we are maybe seeing a little bit higher vacancies in public safety, but the trend as far as cost is going up. I just want to remind that we are within budgeted parameters as far as the trend though in these departments, so it's not like we're outside of budget. So moving on to the second quarter, and I'm going to go really quick again. Reminder, our assessed values increased 3.3% over the prior year, and our interest revenue is doing really good. And all of our enterprise funds appear to be within normal ranges. So general fund again, we seem to be trending upward, which is good. Our property taxes are trending upward. Now this is something I'm putting into the presentation as well. This is a percentage of property taxes collected based on what the assessor says they billed. And so what you're really looking for is a potential swing between the years. And you can see 85% in 2022 is actually kind of low for us. So where we're sitting at this 87.67% as far as turnover is within normal. Typically you can tell if a potential downturn in the economy is happening if people stop paying their property taxes at the front end. And as you can see in the second quarter, building safety revenues kind of jump back up to 2023, but they're still a little bit behind 2023. And I'm being told by building, as of today, they can kind of notice that even quarter three is going to be a little bit slower than 2023. Lodging tax again, quarter two, it is trending down. It's about a 3% decline, and I think Tori came in and talked about the similar thing that's going along in the region as far as transient lodging tax. And so we've actually projected revenues to come in slightly lower than previous years, so that way we can hopefully sustainably budget. Again, water revenues, utility revenues, they're on an upward trend, which is good, is what we like to see. Same thing with expenditures. Transfers can be seasonal.
For operational and capital needs, capital projects are typically low due to funds that are pooled and appropriated but may not be spent in the current year. Water and wastewater will appear high due to debt service payments in your packet. And then insurance is still high due to the annual payments at the front of the year. Again, more of the same. All the departments are trending above previous years. And public safety is continuing on the similar trend. We're outpacing the previous year by about $1 million, which is about an 8% increase, which seems to be about normal with all their personnel increase. That's about $500,000 a quarter that it potentially will outpace each of the previous quarters. So you're looking at about a $2 million increase in costs over the previous year. And with that, there's the motion, and I think you guys basically already approved it. So do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions? All right. Thank you. We did, Vanessa made the motion, seconded by Valerie, to approve the consent agenda tonight. So Vanessa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Council comments tonight? Staff comments? Nope. All right, I guess that just leaves item 8.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded by Rick. All in favor of adjourning this evening, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.